Yes, sir. Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Welcome back to the live stream. It is currently 3:48 a.m. and today's date is the 4th of January 2025. The 4th day. Yes. How are you doing? It is Saturday. Welcome back to the live stream. Yes, sir. As you all know, Mike Johnson is now the Speaker of the House. Shout out to Local Things. Welcome to the live show. Yeah, Mike Johnson is the Speaker of the House officially. Shout out to the legendary 45th, now the 47th President elect Donald J. Trump, because he endorsed Mike Johnson, and Mike Johnson eventually became the Speaker of the House. So I guess people forget how powerful the endorsement of President OG Donald J. Trump is. Shout out to look what thing says. In Philippines, we are so happy that you vote for Trump. Now we can have peace in the world. Thank you and God bless you. Yes, sir. God bless you too, local things. Welcome to the live stream. Yes, sir. We are here. Okay, so without further delay, we're gonna skim through a lot of things going on in the United States. It's probably gonna be like a 2 hour stream. But you know what? Let's get it. Let's get it done. Let's get it done. All right. If you also want to join the membership, it is $4.99. If you want to join the membership of the channel, it is $4.99. Join, ladies and gentlemen. Support the channel by joining the membership. It really helps the channel a lot. If you like the content, if you like the interactions, if you like to be in the chat and keep conversing and making a um so enjoying a good time in the chat, consider joining the membership. Consider joining the membership. All right. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's get straight into business. Check this out.
A House Speaker sometime after that so that lawmakers can get sworn in. However, Politico is reporting yesterday that current House Speaker Mike Johnson does not have the votes to keep his job. Johnson can only afford to lose one Republican vote, Kentucky Congressman Thomas Massie doubling down on his no vote. Nonetheless, Johnson still is positive about his chances of winning on the first round of voting, even telling Fox News that just a few moments ago on Capitol Hill. Now, Johnson met with members of the House Freedom Caucus Thursday, who were reportedly seeking promises on spending cuts and assurances that all members will be involved in high-stakes negotiations. Still, some lawmakers are not ready to commit to a yes vote. Watch.
Are you undecided right now?
I will make a decision tomorrow. But we had a good meeting with the speaker, discussed some things. I think in a lot of things we agreed.
I'm undecided.
What do you need to hear still?
We're talking about that now.
Can you be a little more specific?
No, I'm just going to tell you, it's the normal things y'all report on. Physical discipline, securing the border, pass reconciliation, pass Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, pass the 19 other appropriation bills on time.
Joining me now is Florida Congressman Greg Steube. He's a member of the House Ways and Means Committee and the Subcommittee on Weaponization of the Federal Government. He's also a U.S. Army veteran who served in Iraq. Congressman, I'm always thrilled to speak with you. I do want to ask you about some reporting that's in the Hill this morning. They're saying that roughly a dozen hardline conservatives are demanding more commitments, and at this point there are no against Speaker Johnson. Basically, they're reporting, and this is one off the record, says they want a commitment for spending cuts. The other thing they want, start using the members to negotiate these bills and what's going to be in these packages. Your reaction?
Well, I think the big piece here that is being missed is President Trump. And President Trump has endorsed Speaker Johnson. Look, I will be the first to tell you, and I've said this publicly on many occasions, I'm not happy with the way that Speaker Johnson handled the last year. I'm not happy with the way the CR worked out. At the end of this last year, I'm not happy that we voted on 5 other CRs with the Democrats. But President Trump wants Mike Johnson to get in, get the gavel, get the election certified on Monday, and move about his agenda. We can't do that if he's not Speaker. We can't even function as a body without a speaker. So I think with the president kind of bearing down on what he wants to see happen will have a huge effect on these members. These are Freedom Caucus members where Trump has a ton of sway in their district, and going against the president on the floor in a very public vote like this, I don't think would bode well for them going forward. We want to move the agenda around. And the other piece of this is it only takes 9 members to move to vacate the chair once we pass the rules package. If President Trump isn't happy with the way that Speaker Johnson is handling himself, he will very quickly be removed. All that Trump would have to do is say that he's not happy with the way things are going.
Well, you know, Congressman, we've had several lawmakers on the program over the last 2 weeks, and one congressman telling me that, you know, this is about some of these lawmakers, they want the attention. Maybe it's for fundraising. Maybe it's, you know, that those media hits that they get from voicing their opposition to Johnson's agenda, you know, that's more important to them than maybe coming together with the rest of the Republicans to make sure that the business of the American people gets done. And to your point, to certify the election on Monday, January 6th. Now, help us understand how this is all going to play out this afternoon, because is it possible this could be a second vote, a third vote, a fourth vote? How long could this go if you do have some that start to voice opposition to Johnson this afternoon?
Yeah, Speaker McCarthy took 5 days, so it could go. The Constitution says until you have a speaker, you can't function as a body. So we keep going. Now, we can take breaks. So if the speaker wants to take breaks to try to huddle with members that aren't supporting him, he can obviously do that. But it could go days. It could go 1 vote. We could be done. The only hard no that has been public has been Thomas Massie. He is definitely going to be a no. We don't know who he's going to vote for on the floor, but he's going to vote for somebody not Mike Johnson. So Mike can't lose 1 more member. If that does happen, then we'd have to go another round. He could do that immediately after the first vote, or he could do that, take a break, talk to the people that are voting against him, try to work out some type of deal, and then vote again. So it could take days. But again, the certification of the election's on Monday. All of us are already going to be here over the weekend because we have a reconciliation meeting tomorrow. I just don't anticipate that a lot of these members that have voiced frustration like I have against Johnson are going to go against President Trump. And we have to get in. We have to get a speaker sat. We have to get the election certified on Monday so that we can start moving forward on President Trump's agenda.
Okay, look, Fox News just caught up with Speaker Johnson at the Capitol. I want to play this really quick for our viewers.
I think so.
All right. So again, voicing his optimism.
I mean, we all know that the legendary OG Donald Trump definitely endorsed Mike Johnson, and some people are like,
interrupt real quick.
"We don't trust
Brian.
Mike Johnson. Oh, we don't like the way he is, or whatever." But the fact is, I mean, you don't have to trust him really. Just all people expect is for him to do his job. To do your job, certify the president, the OG, Donald J. Trump, and just be a useful human being in Congress and let the commander-in-chief work. You just follow.
Congressman-elect Norman and Self are now in the front of the chamber. If they change their votes to Johnson, see if we can listen.
And the fact that Johnson and Jeffries were like just 1 vote away from each other is like, it is wild. How can the Republican Party have the majority and then Jeffries is like just 1 person behind, 1 vote behind? Yeah, this ain't allowed. This isn't what we want for the next 2 years, because the Republican Party has the majority. So you shouldn't be having one vote ahead of the Democratic Party. That's not even, come on, man.
House will be in order.
Mr. Norman Johnson.
Okay, now go to Mr. Self. Donalds.
Mr. Self is recorded as Donalds. Mr. Self Johnson.
With that, the majority is reached at 218, and once this is gavelled closed, Sandra, we will have a new Speaker of the House for the 119th Congress, and Mike Johnson from Louisiana. Took a little bit to get there, but you see the celebrations on the House floor.
We had the lawmaker on just a few moments ago who said he had just chatted with two lawmakers that were among those who voted for someone other than Johnson. Said he was optimistic. Sounds like he had a pretty good conversation because this is obviously the outcome of that. And there is probably a pretty elated Speaker-elect Johnson walking back up the aisle there, Brett.
Let's listen in. We'll get a gavel here as he's shaking hands with all the folks. We don't know what the conversation was with Ralph Norman or Keith Self. That's Nancy Mace giving him a hug on the floor there. Let's listen into the floor.
That's right.
That's Claudia Tenney from New York with the hug there, and everybody giving congratulations, Sandra. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there'll be a phone call soon from President-elect Trump, who is working hard to make this happen on a first ballot.
The OG endorsed him. The OG endorsed him. The 45th, now the 47th president-elect endorsed him. And then he has the majority right now. He is the Speaker of the House. So, I mean, regardless of whatever anybody says, like, yo, he's a doc, he's not, he reminds you of Pence or whatever. The fact is, he was a key player in making sure the legend, the OG, the 45th, now the 47th president-elect Donald J. Trump, president, he worked hard. Mike Johnson worked hard during the campaign, during the rallies, during the roundtable conversations, during the elections. He worked hard. It's not just Mike Johnson, obviously. There's Elon Musk. There's Marjorie Taylor Greene. There is the whole Trump family. There is, Joe Rogan. There's a lot of people, podcasters, Aiden Ross. A lot of people tried their best to make sure the legend became the 47th president-elect. However, Mike Johnson was also a key player. You could like argue, but Mike Johnson did what he had to do to put Trump up there. So it is what it is, man. He got the Speaker of the House, and on Monday, definitely he's going to certify the legend as the President of the United States.
Now, Molly Hemingway, we have been talking throughout, watching this happen, and this is how this goes. Pretty historic moment as we saw the two lawmakers approach the front there and change their votes to Johnson. Your thoughts, Molly?
Well, it ended up being kind of a thrilling moment there to see these two guys go down and change their votes. But it was a messy process. It was managed on the first vote, but it was messy getting there. But that's really, again, what democracy is like. I think a lot of Americans would like to see far more debate in the House than they've been seeing in recent decades about the issues that are confronting America. And this, might be the prologue of some interesting debates as we have new and fresh ideas about how to improve our state of government. But I think Mike Johnson probably understands, too, that he needs to improve over, not that he hasn't done a completely capable job in the last year, but that he needs to improve over what he's done and start getting more deliverables for Republican members and their voters. And that'll be much easier for him now that the Senate is going to be under Republican control and the White House as well.
Byron York, you were interrupted before. Thoughts about this as we move forward and the Trump agenda and what happens now as the certification of the election happens January 6th?
I think this was the Donald Trump effect because he's the president-elect. He is wildly popular in the Republican Party, and any Republican member of the House who's standing up against what Trump wants has to answer for that.
The state of Louisiana
Let's listen in.
received 218.
Well, that makes it official, right, Brett? We knew the tally, the new unofficial tally, had become 218-215-1, showing Johnson should have the votes. It wasn't official till the clerk read it, and it has. Let's listen again.
Jeffries of the state of New York has received 215. And the Honorable Tom Emmer of the state of Minnesota has received 1. Therefore, the Honorable Mike Johnson of the state of Louisiana, having received a majority of the votes cast, is duly elected Speaker of the House of Representatives for the 119th Congress.
That's right.
The clerk appoints the following committee to escort the Speaker-elect to the chair. The gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Scalise. The gentleman from New York, Mr. Jeffries. The gentleman from Minnesota, Mr. Emmer. The gentlewoman from Massachusetts, Ms. Clark. The gentlewoman from Michigan, Mrs. McClain. The gentleman from California, Mr. Aguilar. The gentleman from North Carolina, Mr. Hudson. The gentleman from California, Mr. Liu. The gentleman from Oklahoma, Mr. Hearn. The gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Neguse. The gentleman from Utah, Mr. Moore. The gentlewoman from Washington, Ms. Delbene. The gentlewoman from Indiana, Mrs. Houchin. The gentleman from New York, Mr. Morelli. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Reschenthaler. The gentlewoman from Michigan, Mrs. Dingell. And the members of the Louisiana delegation, Mr. Higgins, Ms. Letlow, Mr. Carter, and Mr. Fields. The committee will retire from the chamber to escort the Speaker-elect to the chair.
Shout out to the Speaker-elect, Mike Johnson. This is a Trump effect for sure. Everybody can go back and forth. However, this is a Trump effect. Regardless of whatever you say, Trump supports Mike Johnson, and he believes he's going to do his bidding. And that's it. That's all that counts, okay? Like the Republican Party, y'all like going back and forth. Let him do his job. If he then messes up, he can go. Okay, this man can literally leave. As long as Trump says, you know what, you're going to have to leave if you're not doing what you're supposed to do. But as long as he keeps doing what he's supposed to do, which is promote and defend the United States, and also focus on the Trump agenda, which is make America great again, secure the border, bring down inflation, make sure foreign policy is well thought out. Bring back jobs to the United States, and just make sure everything is all Gucci up here. Because a lot of people are going through a lot. People are doing 3, 4, 5 jobs just to pay bills in the United States. As of today, things are very, very hard for people, and this is just the facts. And Yeah, man, people can't wait for January 20 to come by so they can get no tax on tips. And this is why Mike Johnson is needed, because Mike Johnson has been very helpful when it comes to passing a lot of updates in the House. Okay, so this is what it is. I support Mike Johnson for sure because the commander in chief, President-elect Donald J. Trump supports him. So, I mean, what are you doing if you don't support it?
Welcome back. Here's a look at where markets ended this holiday shortened trading week to kick off the new year. But the S&P 500 is coming off its best two-year performance since 1998. My next guest says get ready for another year of gains. Joining me now, Bullseye American Ingenuity Fund Portfolio Manager Adam Johnson. Great to have you with us. So
Thanks,
tell me why this market's going to just continue to rally.
Well, there are a number of reasons. We already have an economy growing 3%. We already have inflation that is coming back down to where we want it to be. 2% is the Fed's target. It's running about 2.5% right now if you average all the inflation gauges. We have the most number of people ever making the highest gross adjusted income ever, spending the most ever. That's generating earnings growth for the S&P 500 that I think will accelerate to double digits. And now we have an incoming administration that is finally business friendly. Right. Fewer regulations, lower taxes, drill baby drill means lower oil prices for everybody. And I think what it really boils down to for me, Jackie, as someone who runs the American Ingenuity Fund, is this is an administration that supports American ingenuity, American resilience, American strength, American security. And I think all those reasons are going to produce new highs.
Are you worried at all if the tax cuts, not only just for individuals, small businesses and corporations, aren't passed in the first CR, if they're delayed, that's going to hamper the speed of things?
No, I think there are other priorities. We need to secure the border. Yeah. We need to be strong to the eyes of the world, which are upon us. We need to unleash drilling. We need to get rid of all the regulations that are holding American businesses back. We can get to taxes, and we will. But I think it's about priorities. Taxes will come. So if it has to be two different packages, then let it be two packages. We'll get there.
Okay. Tech and AI, they drove us forward last year. Is that going to be the story in 2025, or do you see anything else up and coming?
Oh, it's one of the big stories. I have right now more semiconductors in the portfolio than I've ever had because the AI theme, because the compute theme. In other words, we need to figure out how to be able to do more with more to generate more. And the way you do that is by increasing the power of computers, from semiconductors to the wiring to the data storage that's behind it. So that's an incredibly powerful theme. Robotics, an incredibly powerful theme. That ties into artificial intelligence. Just look at what's happening with logistics. One of the companies that we own in the portfolio, Symbotic, is converting all of Walmart's 47 warehouses into robotic warehouses.
Yeah.
And think about that. You know, you don't need people to run these things. The lights can stay off. That saves electricity. But you do need artificial intelligence that helps you figure out how to get material from A to B in a smoother, faster manner without people doing it.
So you're bullish.
Oh, yeah.
There are some out there saying this market has run too far too fast and we might be due for a pullback or possibly a correction.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, we've kind of already had one, right? I mean, December was a little ugly. Some of the names in my portfolio were down a fair amount. That was in part because inflation kind of peaked its ugly little head up, and bond yields went up. And when bond yields go up, stocks tend to go down. So if you look at the S&P 500, we're down 5% in the month of December. For the NASDAQ, it was more than that. For small caps, it was about 11%. So we've already kind of had a little mini correction. I've done some buying because I think we are going to see new highs. And over the course of last year, by the way, we actually had 4 corrections of anywhere from 8 to 11%. That's just a natural part of what happens. I mean, people forget.
But you'd be buying those dips.
Oh, yeah. Well, look at what happened with NVIDIA. It had 3 corrections of more than 20% last year.
Yeah.
So you have to buy those dips, and you have to be willing to actually step in. That's part of managing money, right? It's managing risk.
Meanwhile, I want to get to this because it's a rare event in Washington. Senator Bernie Sanders actually applauding a proposal from President-elect Trump capping credit card interest rates at 10%. Sanders saying that he hopes Trump is going to support his upcoming legislation on this at a time when credit card defaults, of course, have been at their highest in 14 years. What do you make of this alliance, capping these interest rates? Things have been tough for consumers for sure. But
And I'm not even going to cap. Like the 10% interest rate cap, it is absolutely very, very important to Americans and for a lot of struggling Americans. Like, look, people are here in the chat saying, well, why is Trump selling stuff to struggling Americans? It is called capitalism, my dog. It is called capitalism. Are you going to tell McDonald's to not sell burgers because people are not making enough to pay their bills? Are you going to tell Amazon to not keep selling? Are you going to tell Walmart, Kroger, Publix, Wendy's, Chick-fil-A, Tesla, Microsoft, Apple? Like, this is what America was built on: buying and selling. Okay, you buy on the chip, you sell on the high. That's what it is. Okay, this is just what it is. It's what has made America what it is today. Okay, this is why a lot of people want to come to the United States and work their butt off to become something. Okay, people travel from all over the world, come here to live the American dream, because this is the country where you buy stuff on the low and you sell on the high, and people are willing to buy. Okay, so you either be the consumer or you be a manufacturer, a producer, and you could be both. Okay, because regardless of whatever you do, you still have to consume. You still have to consume. Like I gotta go to Publix. I gotta buy food. I gotta make sure I got internet on my phone. I got a phone to call my family. I got a computer. I got a speaker. I got water. I got food. I still have to consume as well. But at the end of the day, you just have to choose. Okay, are you gonna just consume, or are you gonna, in some way, shape, or form, be a producer as well? It is just what it is. You can hate on the game and say, well, look, I hate rich people. Rich people are the problem. Tax the wealthy. Well, good luck.
But as you mentioned, they've still been spending.
Yeah, people are still spending. Well, I am someone who believes that smaller government is better government. So I don't like anything that gets in the way of a free market. I don't like caps. Quite frankly, I don't even like tariffs. They get in the way of the free flow of goods and services. So yeah, capping interest rates, that to me doesn't sound appropriate. It doesn't sound right. It's government getting...
Man, cap the goddamn interest rate.
Too involved in people's business. No, if your debt is too high, that's your problem.
Stop spending.
Stop spending.
Of course, I mean, I'm not even gonna cap. If your debt is too high, stop spending. I get it. However, it's like, if everything is so expensive, and then you have a commander in chief like the OG legend Donald J. Trump saying he wants to cap interest rate at 10%. I think that's very thoughtful. And this is why and how you know that this guy is actually for everyday Americans: the truck drivers, the construction workers, the plumbers, the painters, the carpenters, the welders. This is how you know he's for the everyday Americans, because he's trying to cap interest rate. The elites don't like that, because this is how they get paid. They get paid with or through banking. Okay. The more you consume, the more they get paid. So you can tell that guy is saying, you know what? I don't think Trump should do that. And Trump is saying, I want to do it. That's how you know this guy actually is for the people.
Don't turn it into something that now requires a government bailout. You know, the old expression, any government that's capable of giving its citizens everything they want, in this case, caps on interest rates, is equally capable of taking it away. Smaller government is better government. No, we should not get involved with capping interest rates.
I hear you on that.
Yeah.
Great to see you, Adam Johnson. Thank you so much.
It is what it is.
Now, traders Keith Fitzgerald and John Najarian. John, it's not just...
One thing I know for a fact is this next 4 years, there will be so much opportunity for everyday Americans, for everyday regular person like me and you, that isn't like in that league of hundreds of thousands of dollars every year or millions of dollars every year. And this will be the window to open up your horizon and expand your horizon and see that anything is possible. This next 4 years, there would be so much opportunity for sure, because Trump is a businessman. You saw how life was from 2016 to 2020. You saw how things were affordable. Gas was at its lowest. Mortgage rate was at its lowest. The border was secured. People had money in their pocket. So now this is 2024, and he wants to do even better. So, this ain't tax the rich. Look, when you tax the rich, you are indirectly taxing the broke as well, because this rich people that you're trying to tax, they don't even pay taxes on income, like no income tax basically, because they get paid in stocks. So you're saying tax the rich. Essentially, what you're saying is increase taxes on corporations. And if you increase taxes on corporations, the people that are hired in those corporations are regular everyday Americans. And everyday regular Americans would get that recouped on their paychecks. Okay, they're going to get more money taken out of their paychecks because the government is taxing those big corporations. So when you say tax the rich, it's like Elon Musk doesn't even get paid in cash. Okay, these people don't get paid like the regular people that gets paid every 2 weeks or every 5, 6, 7 days a week. These people get paid in stocks, and then they take a loan against the stock. So Elon Musk probably gets paid like $50 billion in stocks, and he goes right straight to Chase and says he wants a loan for $20 billion. And Chase says, right straight up, we're going to give you $20 billion loan, because they know he has the cash in stocks. These guys don't get paid like you get paid. And you cannot pay taxes on interest on loans. I mean, I'm not a taxpayer, but this is just common regular knowledge.
Just equities joining the January party here. We've got Bitcoin once again gaining as well. Oil is up. West Texas Intermediate in the aftermarket is moving well above more than $73. So it's at $74.09 at the moment. That's an 11-week high. What are you gleaning from the bigger picture of the price action today for investors?
Well, you've talked about two of them just right there, Liz. One of them, Bitcoin, obviously, there's a lot of stocks that are tied to it. MicroStrategy, one of them. But that's a very, very leveraged bet on Bitcoin. So we noticed a lot of unusual activity, Liz, in TeraWulf, which is symbol WULF. The stock's a $6 stock. They're betting that over the next few months it trades through $8 a share, which would be nearly 30% to the upside. I like that trade. And then as far as energy, which you also just mentioned, with crude oil trading back over 74. EQT, this is a natural gas player, not a crude oil play, but nonetheless, natural gas is necessary for electricity generation as well as some of the cold that hit the East Coast. And this is an Appalachian-based company, basically. So EQT moving to the upside because of strong demand, and somebody bought nearly 2.8 million share equivalent of the upside calls in this one that are all the way out till February. So I like both of those two plays, Liz.
Yeah, and they're not, Keith, two out front kind of names. You, of course, have been pounding the table on Tesla, Palantir, Costco, many of these other names that are very much, widely held stocks. What are you doing?
And there's no way Tesla is definitely going to the moon this next 4 years. Like, that's not even a conversation.
When you look at these rallies that we're seeing at the moment in different echelons of the market, I mean, the VIX is falling. There doesn't appear to be any concern, even when there was that moment during the speaker vote where it looked like Mike Johnson wasn't going to pull it out, which he eventually did with the majority of 218 votes. Some confusion there, but the market never wavered. What does that tell you?
Well, number one, it tells me that it's going to be hard to wipe the smile off my face, because I think what that portends is a lot of activity, a lot of money still on the move, a lot of hungry money looking for great companies at the right point in time. So, you and I have talked about this for a long time. When you're on a winning horse, you want to ride it all the way to the end of the race. You don't switch in the middle unless you have a compelling reason to do so.
Okay, so that tells me you're staying with names like Palantir. But John, when you look at valuations, because I know you do, even when you're trading options as well, does the market look expensive to you at the moment?
Certain parts of it certainly do, Liz. But that's not to say that they won't do what stocks tend to do, and that is have a pullback and then a race again to the upside. When you and I were together in Florida recently, we talked about a lot of those small nuclear plays, for instance, those small modular reactors. A lot of those got hit as people were taking profits. And then today, many of them are up over 20% in a single session. That's like Oklo, OKLO, as well as NNE, nanonuclear, and so forth.
Okla's
SMR.
up, hey, John, Okla's up 23.25% right now. And I think that's...
They're just putting the whip to it.
Yeah, but you got to strap in for a very wild ride. Isn't that right, John?
That is very correct. And these won't have significant revenue for several years, but sort of like the AI plays, sort of like the quantum computing plays, these bets into the future are likely, the survivors of this are likely to be several $100s, not $20, not $30, but you're going to have to be a patient investor. And as you said, you're going to have to tolerate some pretty significant volatility, just like Keith just spoke of.
You know, Keith, you, along with Sarge, who, of course, is one of our traders on the show, and of Buffett, Warren Buffett says, don't buy stocks on an up day. Buy your preferred stocks on your shopping list when they are down. I was talking to my two very young nephews. They're in their early 20s, and they are so smart about buying stocks. They have little shares of different companies, and they watch the market really closely. But I ordered them. I said, you do not buy any of these stocks when they are moving higher. Wait for even just a tiny pullback. Is that still the right advice in 2025?
Well, there's no question, and John alluded to it. You know, you wait for the pullback, and the reason you wait for the pullback is because that's when emotions are running high, and most people make exactly the right decision at precisely the wrong moment, meaning they run in fear instead of investing in optimism. So me personally, yeah, the worse the fall off, the worse the headlines, the worse the fear, the more aptly I'm going to go shopping and the deeper I'm going to buy.
John, everybody's talked about the Russell, and when's that big moment where the market broadens out to many smaller names in the small and mid cap index? Do you see any of that? I mean, you look at those names as well.
Yeah, I do. And I will see some of that happening. But right now, Liz, one of the big things that's the biggest impediment in my mind isn't the speaker vote. It is the 10-year bond. And we need a break of that fever. We need that 10-year bond, the yield on it, to come down. So bonds up, yield down. That's what we need. That will certainly be manna from heaven for the small caps and the NASDAQ for that matter. You mentioned it's up 1.7%, I think, on the day. You'll see it do another one of those on any kind of serious breaks.
Can you have it all, though, guys? Can you have, because we have a pretty solid economy right now. All of the data show that. I mean, you had Barkin today. He, of course, Richmond Federal Reserve Bank President Barkin was coming out today, and he said he's still a little bit worried about inflation. He basically said he's in the camp of staying restrictive for longer. He has a message loud and clear, though, from businesses that...
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy, Genesis. Shout out to everybody on the live chat. Okay, somebody spoke about Hurricane Helen. I was definitely affected by Hurricane Helen. I didn't have power for about 9 days, and there was no internet for about 22 days. I had to take my family from here to a close city or a nearby city, and we were at an Airbnb for about 2 weeks. Yeah, it wasn't pretty, man. It wasn't pretty. But, you know, as always, God is in control regardless.
Consumers are more price sensitive, so things are balancing. The consumer's calming down a little bit. Inflation is closer to 2%, not quite there yet, so he's not entirely sold on immediately chopping rates again. But Keith, give me your sense of this, because you got a strong economy. Why would the 10-year yield start coming down?
Well, you got a couple things, right? The election is out of the way, the uncertainty is off the table, the Fed's been benched, and you've got great big companies in particular who are moving forward with globally unprecedented themes. So it's absolutely possible to be economically cautious, but a market bull. And the mechanics of today's markets are very different than the economic models that guys like that use to make their statements.
Yeah, I know. Guys like that and guys like you guys. I'm listening to you guys, so we're thrilled to have you.
Thank you.
Happy New Year to you both, Keith Fitzgerald and John Najarian.
Shout out to Mike Johnson one more time. I cannot wait for Monday. Certify this man. Let's get it. Certify this man and let's get it, man.
Focus now, John O'Caldwell, Fox News political analyst. So let's start with the current threats that they're investigating right now. possible acts of terrorism, particularly New Orleans. And I just want to get your take on the politics of the moment with the man currently in the White House.
Oh, you mean
Well,
Joe
you know
Biden?
what, Harris? I'm going to be very honest. I do not trust the federal government under the leadership of Joe Biden. Why? Because he's been a part of the problem. We know that since the border has been open, we've seen hundreds of folks that have come in that had ties to terrorism. Specifically, a report came out last year in June showing that 400 migrants were brought over by ISIS human smugglers. What were they doing? They weren't bringing them over here for freedom. They were bringing them over here for a reason that most of us realize already, and there's many, many more that we've seen come across that border commit harm to our country. Not only that, we've seen our military attacked, and we not respond. We've seen it on ships. We've seen it all over. So America has not been respected on the world stage with Joe Biden as the leader of our country, but that will soon change on January 20th, I can assure you that.
You know, it's interesting because every outgoing administration has this gap in time between Election Day and Inauguration Day. Usually, though, there is not absentee-type leadership that's going on. But that is the criticism that I hear from people constantly.
Yes, Joe Biden has been asleep at the wheel and literally asleep in the presence of world leaders. Yeah. So we've been asking a question for many, many months, perhaps at this point, years, who's really running the White House? Yeah. And we see that Joe Biden has taking these actions to try to shore up his legacy by allowing some folks who are on death row to come off death row. He's given a lot of clemency to a number of different individuals. Meanwhile, we got people who in the United States of America are dying in the streets because of the violent crime that exists because of the border being open. It's called migrant crime. We have serious issues to think about. But, instead of thinking backwards, looking forward, I'm excited about Kash Patel taking over the FBI. I'm excited about Pam Bondi taking over the DOJ. I'm excited about Pete Hegseth taking over the DOD. These are individuals who I believe are committed to America, our values, and the forward movement of our country. And we are going to soon enough see the policy rollouts of how things are going to change.
Yeah, more than 76 million people voted with those aspirations of a better situation and safety, security, economic, all of that as well. So speaking of the Senate, by the way, at 11:45 a.m. Eastern, the U.S. Senate will begin its process. Goodbye to the 118th, hello to the 119th. Their transition, if you will begin. So we're watching for that. And also top of the hour, shortly after that, the House will begin its session to vote for a speaker. So we got a lot going on in the next few minutes. I'm glad you're with me. The New Year's Day terror attack in New Orleans has Republicans calling to speed up what you were just talking about, Jono, the Senate confirmation of President-elect Trump's national security nominees. And they include Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, FBI Director nominee Kash Patel, and former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence. Fox confirms Gabbard will meet with Senator Mark Warner, Democrat, on Monday. And he's the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Incoming Majority Leader John Thune posted this. This is a clear example of why the
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Yes, sir. Like I always say, I wasn't born in the United States. I moved to the United States about 8-9 years ago. I became a United States citizen about 3 years ago. And one thing that I've noticed is when I talk to American-born people, and I'm talking to them about like, how is the economy like? How do you get your credit nice? How do you, file your taxes? What do you know about insurance? These people don't know anything about nothing. Okay, all they know is complaining. I'm not saying all Americans, but most Americans that I have spoken with that were born here, they embody the definition of complaining. All they know is complain. This is just a joke. Oh, they ain't gonna do nothing. Man, I don't want to bother myself watching that. I don't want to be this. I don't want to be that. Okay, so you don't want to be a part of it, but you want to complain. So what are you gonna do? What are you going to do? You're not going to be a part of it, but you want to complain? That's all you're going to do, complain? You don't want to know how the government works? Oh, our votes don't count anyway. I'm not voting. So what are you complaining about? When I ask people, what's the gas prices history been? They're like, I don't care about the gas prices. I don't check the gas prices. I just buy my gas and get it fuck out of there. It's like, bro, so you don't check the gas prices? Come on, man. Like, people come all the way from different countries, come to the United States to enjoy the benefit of the United States. And then you have people who were actually blessed to be born in the United States and they take it for granted. It's like, why would you take it for granted? Why don't you want to get involved? This ain't a joke. This is real life. This is real life. You want to complain, but you don't want to know how things works. You want to complain. That's all you want to do. It's like, can you actually be a part of the process? Can you vote? You see Americans that say, you know what? I'm not voting for either party. It's like, bro, what are you doing not voting? Like, then you're going to complain when things go south. They're like, you know what? The person in the White House does not affect me. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Go to New York and see how the lady on the subway was set ablaze. On the subway. You think the person in the White House didn't have anything to do with that? With the open border policy? So it's like, you know, you got to be smart. You got to be smart, man. You got to be smart. Just like the mortgage rate right now. What was the mortgage rate in 2019, 2020? And what is the mortgage rate right now? The person in the White House has nothing to do with me and my family. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Absolutely, they do. You better get in line.
Senate must get President Trump's national security team in place as quickly as possible. Incoming Majority Whip John Barrasso says lives depend on it. And Senator-elect Bernie Moreno says every single national security nominee should be confirmed and ready to protect America by January 20th. So that rubber stamps what you were just saying. Let's take it up a notch. The fight will be mighty because the legacy points that we've seen flexed with Joe Biden, Democrats in Congress in the Senate are going to want to do the same thing. Many of them are going to face elections coming up in 26.
That's right. But we got to keep in mind that the American people, given this administration is coming in a massive mandate, and we got to get those folks confirmed. It shouldn't be Republicans in the Senate fighting and seeking to find a reason not to vote for one of these nominees. All of them should be confirmed swiftly.
Yeah. I mean, because you probably, just like in the House now, you found out they're all voting for Hakeem Jeffries. Probably not going to get a lot of help from the Democrats. But it is great that these nominees are meeting with everybody on the Hill. Like Senator Warner,
That's right.
Very tied to helping military families. So it's good. John O'Caldwell, thank you.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno.
It is what it is, y'all. Somebody said, I bought my house in 2023 and got stuck with a low mortgage at 756. I mean, historically, that is a low mortgage rate. I'm not even going to cap. However, in 2019 and 2020, if you got your house in 2019 or 2020, you would have probably had like a 2.93% mortgage rate. And this is just facts.
After confidently predicting a Kamala Harris victory, Democratic strategist James Carville is now admitting that his crystal ball was wrong. And it's hard not to put a smile on your face with this one, conceding that he failed to listen to his own famous advice, "It's the economy, stupid." It was that and a whole lot of other things. Carville also proposed that the Democratic Party needs to go big and go populist after losing the economic narrative. But here's another piece of advice Democrats should consider. Stop nominating terrible candidates. Just today, Kamala Harris seemed to forget the words of the Pledge of Allegiance. Watch this.
Please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oops. Here now with reaction, Hoover Institute.
Come on, man. She didn't forget the Pledge of Allegiance. Come on, man. Come on, y'all. Come on, y'all.
Institution Senior Fellow Victor Davis Hanson, the Federalist correspondent Brianna Lyman, and Democratic pollster Doug Schoen. Doug, thanks. Thank you all for joining us. But Doug, come on, to mess up the Pledge of Allegiance that for the Vice President of the United States, that should be an easy one, right?
I don't think she messed it up. I mean, this is just trying to say something, but come on, we heard it. That wasn't any mess up. She was waiting for this guy's. I mean, Kamala is definitely a disaster when it comes to, being coherent or articulate, but that wasn't any mess up.
Well, it just underscores how really unsuited she was for national office and certainly not to be the president of the United States. And as for James Carville, he was so certain the Democrats were going to win. Everybody who was against Kamala Harris was either wrong or stupid or racist or out of touch, whatever. I think we realize that we are a divided country. The issues, as he's now acknowledged, the economy, the southern border, crime, we're all working for the Republicans. And ultimately, as you've suggested and your other guests have suggested, the victory was clear. And I think my party needs to do a real rethink of where it stands, cooperate with Trump where they agree, where the American people want cooperation, and seek to carve out a new and arguably different identity for the Democratic Party, like the one we had in the Clinton years, which was centrist, fiscally conservative, tough on crime, and strong on the southern border. That Democratic Party can win. This Democratic Party just lost.
Now, they lost in a big way, Brianna. What's your take on it? I mean, Kamala Harris was a horrific candidate. I mean, she came in, I think, 6th place in California behind Andrew Yang, dropped out before they even got to the first vote, for goodness sake. I mean, she was the cat's meow at the beginning, but by the time people actually listened to her, they were ready to get rid of her, but somehow she became the vice president and became the nominee.
Yeah, and that's the story for the entire Democratic Party. You know, James Carville, a few months ago, he correctly pointed out that Democrats went from "it's the economy, stupid" to "you're stupid if you think this economy is bad." And he was right. Democrats, including Kamala Harris, have spent months telling us that this is one of the greatest economies we've ever had. They use metrics that most Americans do not use, like GDP. And then they also went and told us that, yeah, things are bad, but we're not in a recession because we're redefining a recession. Carville called that out, and he was right. And yet now he does a 180, and he says that Americans didn't want to settle for soaring GDP and subsiding inflation. That is why the Democrats lost. Soaring GDP is not a metric average Americans use. And yeah, inflation may be subsiding from record highs created by the Biden-Harris administration. Americans remember, inflation was still lower when Donald Trump left office compared to today. And until people like James Carville, Kamala Harris, and the party gets it, they will continue to lose.
Yeah, come on, Brianna. I mean, my wife Julie and I always sit around the kitchen table talking about the GDP and how that affects the price of eggs. I mean, that's just come on, that's just a common occurrence. But Victor Davis Hanson, you're one of our favorites. I mean, it just seemed that the basic premise and thesis of these candidates and their party as a whole never rang true to the American people.
No, it didn't. I think James Carville knew she was going to lose, and he felt that he was dutiful to build momentum by saying she was a sure winner and trash Trump, but he's not stupid. Doug made a good point. From those wilderness years of 20 years, from 1972, starting with the McGovern left-wing disaster and the landslide Nixon victory, all the way to Bill Clinton's victory in 92, that was 20 years where they only had 4 years of Carterism. Clinton came in and rejected Carterism. You go back and look at the 1996 convention platform of the Democrats, Jason. It's fiscal sobriety, balanced budget, close the border, tough on crime, no exemptions for youthful offenders. They even use the word God's country, God's nation, when they talk about green policies and conservation. It was a very moderate fiscal sobriety, and it was a winning agenda. And they renounced that, and they rejected it, and they went into first a progressive Obama period, and then this French Revolutionary Jacobin crazy period, and they destroyed the party. Carville knows that, and he knows what he has to do. He's got to go back to the 1996 platform. Nancy Pelosi and people like Chuck Schumer were giving speeches about why they had to close the border, and it was to protect union wages and the integrity of citizenship. That seems surreal today. It just almost seems like impossible to even imagine the Democratic Party of that nature.
Yeah, and adding on to that, Doug, it just seems like the Democrats are void of policy ideas. What new creative policy idea did they bring to the table? I can't even name anything.
Jason, there wasn't anything. And look, I appreciate what Victor Davis Hanson said as one of the architects of the 96 convention and platform, along with my partner, Mark Penn. I think that's where the Democratic Party has to go. It's not new ideas. It's the right values and the right policies that reflect what the American people and working people want. If we go back to that, as Victor said, we as Democrats can win. And if we don't, we'll be in the wilderness another 20 years.
Facts. Straight up facts. And that's the thing, like
Incoming
Republican
borders are
has to stay in check, in line. Like they got to stay together. There's no time for error. I'm just glad that they actually voted Mike Johnson in with no long stories, which that was nice to see.
Holman is here now. Tom, I can't help but laugh when I hear that there's all these lawyers coming in. Are these well-trained lawyers going to stop you from protecting the American people?
No, they're not. We're going to do this job. And the story you just covered, look, we got over 2 million known gotaways. We know 2 million people crossed the border, weren't arrested, weren't fingerprinted, weren't vetted. Biggest national security vulnerability I've seen in my career. And even Christopher Wray, the director of FBI, agrees with me. But look, President Trump's been clear. We're going to secure that border. And we're going to finish the job of securing them. We're going to have the most secure border in the history of this nation. Then we're going to run this deportation operation in these sanctuary cities that they can help or get out of the way, because we're coming and we're going to do it. They're not going to stop it. And we're going to hopefully find many of the 340,000 missing children that were trafficked in this country, released to unvetted sponsors that are now living a life of hell every day in sex trafficking or forced labor. We're going to rescue those children too. No one's going to stop us.
Incoming National Security Advisor Michael Walls said something very interesting yesterday. Listen to what he said.
We've got to take a hard look at our defenses. First and foremost, close our border, where we've had over 300 people on the terrorist watch list traverse our border in the last years. Number one. Number two, I'll remind everyone, just in the last year, we had 8 ISIS operatives rolled up, surveilling sites to hit in 3 different cities. A number of them from that cell are still unaccounted for, based out of Tajikistan.
Are there Tajikistan ISIS-linked individuals running around the country unaccounted for?
Absolutely. And let's remember those 8 Tajikistans. When Secretary Mayorkas, they were released, they were vetted too. What happened? Look, here's what people need to know. When Secretary Mayorkas says people are vetted, they're vetted through NCIC, our criminal database. Most countries don't have an NCIC. And if they do, they don't share the information with us. And as far as terrorist vetting, most terrorists in this world aren't in any screening database. Unless they're arrested or involved in a Title III undercover wiretap and caught on a chatter, unless they're encountered on a battlefield by DOD and there's a retina scan done or some sort of biometric information entered in the database, we don't know who most terrorists are in this world. So they can vet all day long. The answer is stop, catch, and release. Detain these people. Let officers go through their pocket trash. Let them do deep dive investigation, find out exactly who these people are. And that's what we want. We want to stop, catch, and release. That's what President Trump's going to do. We're going to put a stop to this madness.
Tom, I only have a few moments here, but one of the challenges laid up by the Wall Street Journal is that Eisenhower, who had mass deportation, had mostly migrants that were from Mexico. So it was much easier to send a group back. Whereas today, you have immigrants from Ukraine, from Tajikistan, from China. Are you going to be able to organize these flights out and get these countries to receive these individuals back?
Yes, because President Trump is the strongest president I ever worked for. I've worked for 6 presidents, starting with Ronald Reagan. No one's better at border security than President Trump. Well, his success is unprecedented. He's a strong president. When I was ICE director, El Salvador went to take back MS-13 criminals. It took President Trump 24 hours until we were removing people to El Salvador. Mexico didn't want to do the Remain in Mexico program. It took President Trump 48 hours to get Remain in Mexico in place. President Trump's a strong president. He puts America first. If other countries want to help us, he can demand to help us. If it's a threat of tariffs or whatever. President Trump is America first. He's the strongest president I've seen in this country. You're going to see the difference starting January 20th.
There you have it. There you have it. There you have it.
Now, John Caldwell, Fox News political analyst. So
There you have it, y'all. Tom Homan. His face looks like the border
Good
wall.
evening again from New Orleans, where the focus tonight is on why this area, the French Quarter.
Okay. What do we have right here? This is an ex-CIA director reacting to the New Orleans attack. I know you guys have heard about the New Orleans attack because we streamed 2 days ago and yesterday about the New Orleans attack, and also the Tesla explosion due to fireworks in front of Trump International at Las Vegas. Both men were military, United States. Both served at Fort Bragg and also served at were deployed to Afghanistan.
On the explosive devices planted by the New Orleans attacker. Officials are telling our John Miller that the attacker, who drove a car through that crowd in the early hours of New Year's Day, murdering 14 people, injuring dozens more, used a rare organic compound not previously seen before in the United States. And officials are trying to determine exactly how the attacker may have obtained it. These are crucial new details. We have more on this coming up here in just a moment, and it comes as we are having more information coming in on the man who blew himself up in a Cybertruck outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. Officials just releasing video of Matthew Livelsberger stopping at a charging station en route to Las Vegas. You can see him there walking towards the vehicle, appears to get inside of it. Now, officials say that his act in front of the Trump Hotel was a suicide. They say Livelsberger was suffering from PTSD and had trouble in his personal life. We know Livelsberger was active duty. He served in the special forces. He'd served in Afghanistan. He was a highly decorated military member. Similarly, the New Year's Eve attacker in New Orleans, Shamsuddin Jabbar, also served in Afghanistan, also decorated for his service. His commander in Afghanistan tweeting today, quote, "I am in utter disbelief. He was a great soldier, someone who showed discipline and dedication. To think that the same individual who once embodied quiet professionalism could harbor so much hate, leading to such unspeakable atrocities, is incomprehensible and heartbreaking." But a newly uncovered audio file uploaded by Jabbar about a year ago offers a look into his religious beliefs. There he says, quote, "Satan's voice is also the misleading of people from Allah's way. They really go hand in hand." And we see what this gradually drives a person to. It's a gentle, gradual luring into the things that God has made forbidden to us. The intoxicants like marijuana, alcohol, sedatives, opioid stimulants, and others. But despite the military and service similarities between the two attackers, officials say that the two incidents are not connected. But still tonight, law enforcement is on high alert as the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI are warning of possible attacks. We've got both stories covered tonight with Natasha Chen on the ground in Las Vegas and Omar Jimenez in New Orleans. And Omar, let's start there with you with this breaking details here that we are learning. What have you found out?
Yeah, so law enforcement officials are telling our John Miller that it was a rare organic compound not previously seen in the United States that was used in the explosive devices that were found in the French Quarter area after the attack that began at the intersection just behind me. And it comes as investigators are also learning more about the actions taken leading up to the time of the attack. Tonight, investigators saying they've determined that 42-year-old Shamsuddin Jabbar set fire to the Airbnb in New Orleans where he was staying ahead of the attack. Authorities say he set a small fire in the hallway and strategically placed accelerants around the house as part of his effort to destroy evidence. All of this as federal authorities are now warning law enforcement across the country to be on the lookout for potential copycat attacks. So you're the council member that represents the French Quarter. How would you assess the ability to prevent something like this before New Year's Day in this area?
Well, seeing how it hadn't happened before, I would assume that enforcement figured that we had it pretty under control. But after the events on New Year's Day, we clearly have weak spots. We clearly have vulnerabilities.
I saw some of those archers on the streets, those yellow ones on the sidewalks now. Why weren't those there before?
That is a question for our law enforcement.
This is where that truck entered Bourbon Street in the early morning hours of the new year. There was a police vehicle here essentially stationed as a makeshift barrier as some of the city's previously installed barriers were under repair. But even if a vehicle took up this entire street. You can see there still was a good amount of space to go around that onto the sidewalk, which, as we know from video, is essentially what happened. Now you see some yellow temporary archer barriers on the sidewalk, but those were not there when this attack unfolded. The city police department has made clear in recent days that barriers previously installed to try and prevent vehicles from coming down the street were under repair ahead of February's Super Bowl in the city, and many of the current measures in place are temporary. But going back years to 2019, a private security firm warned the risk of terrorism, including by vehicular attacks, remained, quote, highly possible, and recommended the vertical safety structures that can move up and down, known as bollards, be fixed. And
Now, a lot of people are saying this happened based off of incompetence. Is that what you guys think? People are saying this is just sheer incompetence, and this is reflecting off of our president, commander-in-chief right now. This is what people are saying. But, anything can happen regardless. However, it's like there was also like a update, and there was a sort of like a warning that there would or there may be like a threat where somebody's going to drive by a large crowd, and that has been known to I guess the FBI, and they passed that information over. So it's like, if that information was already there, why wouldn't they like take precautions? Like precautions should be taken before large gathering like that. But like I said, it's just displaying to me like some sheer incompetence.
And improved immediately. That didn't happen.
It's still a bit unclear as to what took so long. We are definitely going to look into this as a council to figure out who had the contracts, if they were tied up where, why was this moving forward.
For some business owners who were open at the time of the attack,
it was traumatic. It wasn't just like a random shooting or something or whatever. This was like you were seeing it all down the street.
The extra barricades are a welcome sight for him.
It's very nice to see him, and we know we have more to go. I'm happy to see them all, and I'm happy to see, all the police officers.
And there is still a police presence at the entrance to Bourbon Street here. Now, obviously, we have the Super Bowl coming up next month here, and I actually asked that city councilman if he was satisfied with the security assessment or the security efforts that they've seen so far. He says those sidewalk archer barriers are just the start of what he would like to see in the wider safety picture. But of course, as you heard, he did believe there were clearly some vulnerabilities. He does expect them to have more security in the lead up to that big event, Aaron.
Out front now, Leon Panetta, former defense secretary and, of course, also former director of the CIA. Director, I want to just start with you, if I may, we've got a lot of breaking details here, but with what John Miller is reporting on the New Orleans attacker. He is saying that the attacker used a rare compound, an organic one, that until now had never been seen as used in the United States, and that officials at this point are still trying to determine how the attacker may have obtained it. We don't yet have details on exactly what it is, what made it so rare. So I understand there's crucial pieces of this missing, but we do know rare organic compound never before seen used in the U.S. What does that even say to you?
Well, it goes back to the fundamental finding here, which is that he was essentially a lone wolf terrorist who was inspired by ISIS. And what that means is that in many ways, even though there may have been nobody to connect with them directly, that being inspired by ISIS and following ISIS, and if ISIS was aware that there was this lone wolf that was operating in this country, I think there has to be a very careful investigation as to how a compound that resulted in or that could have resulted in additional explosions, how that found its way into his hands. I think it is something we've got to pay attention to, because I think this is a dangerous moment if we're facing other lone wolf terrorists in this country.
Incredibly dangerous. And, you talk about ISIS certainly he was inspired by ISIS at the least. But what I find interesting, Director, is that ISIS has not yet claimed responsibility for the attack, which in some cases, when these horrific things happen, even if it's simply inspired by ISIS and not directed by or known by them in advance, they still celebrate it, they take credit for it, they acknowledge it. They have not done so in this case. Why do you think that could be?
Well, I don't read a lot into that because I suspect that ISIS understands that they were the principal inspiration to this terrorist. And if that's true, and if there are others like this individual who are being inspired by ISIS, they're not going to step out there and claim a lot of credit at this point in time. So I don't think we can read a lot into ISIS not claiming credit. But the fact is they were there. Look, in the intelligence business, I have to tell you, the one thing we worried about the most were lone wolves. How do you track them down? How do you try to protect against this kind of random terrorist act? It is very tough to do. And that's why when it happens, it's got to raise a lot of concern about whether or not intelligence and law enforcement are paying enough attention to the potential for other lone wolves.
I remember this conversation, having it with you so many years ago when you said this was your largest, your single biggest concern. Director, are you concerned that you have two individuals, and obviously they are not related as far as we understand them in any way, but decorated military, one active duty. How much does that worry you?
Well, obviously, as a former Secretary of Defense, I don't like the idea that former soldiers who served well, at least during the time they spent in the military, that somehow there was something that happened that then turned them into terrorists. What that was, we don't know. Look, I don't think there's a direct.
And this is why people are just like being skeptical, because if both men were military and ex-military, it's like, what happened? They both were in Fort Bragg. They both were deployed to Afghanistan, but maybe in different times. But what happened? What changed? These men were lovers of their countries. They loved America. They loved the United States. They served the United States. So what happened? What changed them?
Connection here between military experience and suddenly becoming a terrorist. But I do think that what it means is we have to pay attention to people who have served, who have been in action, pay attention as to whether or not they are potential targets for ISIS to try to inspire them to conduct these kinds of.
This is sad. This is sad, yo. This is absolutely sad. This man were supposed to be heroes.
Breaking news, officials now say the cyber...
This man was supposed to be heroes. Now they are, they're not heroes, basically. Supposed to be heroes because they served the United States. Now, obviously, they did what they did. And now it's like there was ISIS flag in the F-150 the guy at New Orleans was driving. He had ISIS flag. Where did he even get the ISIS flag? Yeah, Jesus.
Breaking news, officials now say the Cybertruck explosion just outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas is a, quote, tragic case of suicide, and that the driver wrote about his political grievances in the days just before the blast. CNN's Natasha Chen is on the scene for us. She has new details. What are you learning, Natasha?
Well, Wolf, we learned a lot from the investigators today at a press briefing who shared some excerpts from writings that they believe were from Livelsberger. They shared those excerpts with the public in hopes that that can shed some light and give context to why this might have happened. Generally speaking, these writings were talking about political views, challenges that he had both personally and looking at situations abroad that the United States was dealing with. He had a lot of grievances that he was writing about, and they described a notes app on his phone where he kept a sort of daily activity log of the 10 days leading up to the explosion that happened right behind us here at the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. Here is one of the authorities at the press briefing talking more about motive.
Can we definitively identify why he chose the Trump Hotel Tower location as well as Las Vegas? And the answer is no. In fact, I think when you read through some of that, you might find that there were some other considerations as well for other locations.
And he's saying that because, as anyone can see, this was a Tesla Cybertruck, Tesla owned by Elon Musk, in front of a Trump hotel. And so a lot of people asked what his political thinking might have been. Now, family members have told CNN that Livelsberger actually had a lot of respect for the former president, and during President Trump's first term had praised the president for what he had done to help the military. But the investigators do say on the podium there that he had considered other locations to go to, including the Grand Canyon and the border. So there's a lot still to comb through. As they say, they have just scratched the surface of going into the data that are on the devices that Livelsberger owned. So a lot more questions here, but starting to understand that at the very least, there were serious mental health challenges going on, Wolf.
Yep, indeed. All right, Natasha Chen in Las Vegas for us. Natasha, thank you very much. Joining us now, the former Washington, D.C. Chief of Homeland Security and Intelligence, Donell Harvin. Donell, thanks very much for joining us. The suspected man behind this explosion in Vegas left a note saying it was a stunt to serve as what he called a wake-up call, and shared other political grievances. It's worth noting this man was a supporter, as we heard, of President-elect Trump. What do these new details tell you about his motive?
These new details shed some light on the fact that, in my professional opinion, this was not politically motivated violence. This is a tragic case, as the Las Vegas police said, of suicide. It's also worth noting, Wolf, that just last year, the Pentagon put out a report that stated that suicide was actually the highest cause of death among active duty military members. They looked at a 5-year period and found that active duty military members were 9 times more likely to die of suicide than of active combat. And so this provides us an opportunity to think about the men and women that are serving in uniform for us and the services that are being provided to them.
Yeah, he was an active duty U.S. Army Green Beret and served in Afghanistan as well. The news conference today, Donell, also gave us some insight into the suspect's movement just before the explosion outside the Trump Hotel. He was seen at a Tesla charging station. What stood out to you when we looked at this video?
You know, it's hard to tell when someone's not in their right mind, but he was just probably charging up his car. Clearly, when you look at some of the communications he had with a former girlfriend, he was admiring the car. He was very fond of the car. It was reported that the car matched the color of some sneakers he had when he was younger. And so it sounded like he was very fond of the car. He chose that car for a reason. And it looked like, he really wanted to make a statement when he left.
The lead FBI agent in charge of this case called this, and I'm quoting now, a tragic case of suicide. But they aren't using language like, quote, suicide bomber, or calling this a terrorist attack. Can you give us some insight as to why?
Yeah, and once again, I think we should mourn the death of this person who's done everything we've asked him to do for the last 19 years. Now, that does not take away from the 8 or so individuals that were injured. And while their injuries were reported as minor, those injuries run deeper than the physical. Obviously, they may have psychological injuries. The point that they're making here, though, is that this individual had the training, the knowledge, and the capabilities to create mass casualties had he wanted to. And so from my standpoint and for many others, it's clear he did not want to hurt anybody else besides himself. And that's probably why they're not using that term in terms of bomber.
Interesting. Investigators say he likely suffered from PTSD, but he was an active duty U.S. Army Green Beret, as I mentioned. Is it possible warning signs were missed?
Absolutely, and that Pentagon report that I talked about that came out just last year noted that a high pace of deployment, PTSD, including seeing the death or injury of fellow members of service, as well as blast exposure or what we call traumatic brain injuries, are one of the highest causes for suicide. The other thing they mentioned is the stigma about getting help. And certainly, once again, this is early reporting, communication between him and his girlfriend suggested that he was reluctant to go in and get help for his PTSD, and this may have caused some of the issues.
Yeah, good point. Donnell Harvin, thanks very much.
This is just sad to see and hear that the people that actually served our country are going through all this type of PTSD situation. It's sad to see, sad to hear.
You are taking a look at some of the video that was released by the Las Vegas Metro Police Department yesterday as we continue to learn more about the situation that unfolded outside of Trump Hotel.
I think we've seen that.
The FBI is sifting through tips to find out why a highly decorated Army soldier blew up a Tesla Cybertruck outside the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. A law enforcement source says the driver was Matthew Livelsberger, a Green Beret who was on leave from his base in Germany. CNN's Natasha Chen joins me now from Las Vegas. Natasha, what more are we learning?
Well, Jim, this is very shocking to the people who knew him, who've spoken to CNN. Someone who used to work with him said that he had advanced steadily in rank in the military to team sergeant and then second in command to the captain of the Special Forces Detachment, and mentioned that his background in Special Forces and explosives seemed at odds with what happened here behind us at the Trump Hotel on New Year's Day morning, where the materials found in that Tesla Cybertruck were fireworks and other things that could have been purchased in retail stores. The investigators yesterday at a press conference talked about the relative lack of sophistication of those materials compared to the extensive background this person had in the military. He became a father in April of last year. CNN has reached out to his wife but has not heard back. His social media presence was sparse, but a relative of his did say that when President Trump was in office, he posted on Facebook saying that he had a lot of respect for President Trump, especially how he was helping the military. And so that relative believed that Livelsberger really loved the president, loved President Trump. And so there are a lot of pieces here that investigators are trying to put together. We understand that the Tesla company is helping out law enforcement here with trying to retrieve more data and potential video from inside that Cybertruck.
A mystery on the Las Vegas Strip as police search for why someone intentionally caused a Tesla Cybertruck to explode in front of the Trump International Hotel. Well, we have new details about that suspect. Matthew Livelsberger was an active duty Green Beret based in Germany, but he was on leave. A relative tells CNN Livelsberger was a strong supporter of President-elect Trump, praising him for helping the military. Now, investigators say they found Livelsberger's military ID inside the burned-out Cybertruck, along with 2 weapons, additional fireworks, his passport, an iPhone, and a smartwatch. And police used Tesla charging stations to track Livelsberger's movements before the explosion. They say that he rented the Cybertruck in Denver on December 28th, before driving through New Mexico and Arizona and arriving in Las Vegas just yesterday morning. Now, security cameras showed the truck pulling into the front of the Trump Hotel once before leaving and visiting other businesses up and down the strip. But an hour later, the truck heads back to the Trump Hotel, pulling into the valet area and parking before exploding 17 seconds later. Now, despite all of this evidence, police are still searching for why this happened. But investigators say they're aware that a Tesla Cybertruck exploding in front of a Trump Hotel, well, it raises questions for a lot of people, doesn't it?
It's not lost on us that it's in front of the Trump building, that it's a Tesla vehicle, but we don't have information at this point that definitively tells us or suggests it was because of this particular ideology or any of the reasoning behind it.
Well, John and Jamil are back with me, along with Bishop Garrison, Senior Fellow and Adjunct Professor at George Mason Law School's National Security Institute. Glad to have you here, Bishop. Thank you. I'm going to begin with you, John, on this, because you've got some new reporting on Matthew Livelsberger. Why would he have done this?
Well, this is the thing that Kevin McMahill, the sheriff in Las Vegas, and Spencer Evans, the special agent in charge of that office, and their teams have been poring over, which is get into the phones, get into the computers, get into the house. Are there communications with radical groups or extremists, right-wing extremists, foreign extremists, left-wing extremists? And that's what they're not finding. Are there connections or communications or associations with the New Orleans suspect who blew up, who had IEDs and did the ramming attack there? That's what they're not finding. What they are starting to see, though, are personal issues in his life, things going on in his family life that were problems for him, things going on in his Army life as a Special Forces Green Beret counterterrorism, counterinsurgency specialist, signs of depression, signs of sadness about long deployments and being away, talk about PTSD, about the amount of violence that they're exposed to, the killing, collateral damage of non-combatants, civilians who were killed. These are things that affect a lot of special operators. So they are, as they're looking for connections between the New Orleans attack and this explosion in Las Vegas, what we're starting to see is the cases drifting apart instead of together. This could have been a organized suicide after a series of life-depressing stressors and a final stressor that might have broken the camel's back, where he wanted to go out literally with a bang in a symbolic location. What does that mean, Laura? Is he trying to say these are the problems that America's most elite soldiers are facing, and I want the new president to know about it? It's a bizarre way to deliver a message, and maybe that's a reach. But it's what they're looking at now, along with many other things. And, they're keeping an open mind because you don't know where the case is going to go.
We don't know, Bishop. We don't know what the connections, if there are any. We do know that there are some red flag, maybe coincidences, but whether they will turn out to anything, I don't know. But we do know this is somebody who is a Green Beret, active duty, by the way. He had been awarded multiple medals. The ATF says the, quote, level of sophistication is not what you'd expect from someone who has all of these sort of accolades and training. But tell me, I'm picking your brain here. What does it suggest to you that this correlation between all of his training and the way this all went down?
Well, first and foremost, my heart goes out to the communities here, both New Orleans and with Las Vegas, because this creates so much tension, so much trauma for those individuals that are just trying to live their lives. Given that we know that he was Master Sergeant active duty with Special Forces, the operations tempo over the course of the last 20 years, when you talk about GWOT, when you talk about the global war on terrorism, has just been so high for these individuals. So much stress. As I myself served 2 tours in Iraq, I served with a great many Special Forces officers enlisted. I know just the pressures that they're going through, both while they're actively in combat and then back at home. When you come back and you have some of these added stressors that John kind of alluded to. The first things first, we need more information. We need to understand a little bit better about what was going on in his life, what might have driven him to this type of activity.
Why he was on leave.
Why he was on leave, why the Trump Tower, why there's so many different ways that he could have gone about doing this that could have made a bigger statement, that could have made more destruction, that could have made less. That he could have written an email, could have written a letter, or he could have had a more powerful explosive given his skill set. So we just don't know. And there are too many folks that are taking the threads of information we do have and going online and looking for some type of coordination or some type of connection between the two events that we've seen and everything else. And it's just going to create more misinformation, disinformation, and more terror. So we just need to kind of take a breath, let law enforcement do what they need to do, and we need to understand better about his life and what was going on. But knowing the amount of stress and pressures that we have these soldiers under, Special Forces operators, we should understand a bit more of what we can do to help. that community and support them properly.
I certainly understand. I'm not having served, but I can appreciate the stressors. It's one thing to talk about what happened in Las Vegas versus what's happening in New Orleans and the loss of lives, other people who were killed as a result of it. But when you look at the psychology and you think about ways in which law enforcement is trying to investigate with an eye towards deterrence, what sticks out to you?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's hard, Laura, because you've got to figure out how do you identify these people? One, how do you identify them ahead of time? To Bishop's point, how do you get them the help they need before they turn into a terrorist in the case of Shamsuddin Jabbar, where he's becoming radicalized, whether it's on the internet or elsewhere? How do you solve in the case of Matthew Levelsberger, where he's going and putting himself in a truck and blowing it up with campfire gas and fireworks, right? How do you get ahead of that? How do you prevent that from happening? How do you prevent the radicalization and the activity that might take lives of others? These are very hard things. And then how do you harden our society against those things? How do you collect the right kind of intelligence? How do you identify lone wolf terrorists? We have an authority for lone wolf surveillance that's expired 4 years ago because Congress didn't act on it. We have 702 authorities, surveillance of foreigners located overseas, that's set to expire once again just in a few months. Congress may not reauthorize it. These are real challenges. Taking those tools off the table for our law enforcement, our military and intelligence communities is exactly the wrong thing to do. Congress is going to have a chance to deal with that and other issues going forward.
It is what it is. But to know that this man actually served and now this is just sad, mind-blowing, and big tragedy. Another situation. Okay, it's everyday news situation. Explosive device placed on train. Check this out.
And I do want to take you to another developing story that we are following. This one is actually coming in out of Idaho. I want to tell you what police are providing at this point. Now, they do say that a man has been arrested after investigators say he actually placed an improvised explosive device on a train car. Take a look. That is his mugshot that has been released by investigators. This was over in Payette. Police say on New Year's Day, around 6 p.m. local time, Payette police were called to the 600 block of North 8th Street for a suspicious man seen near a parked railroad car attempting to light something on fire. Officers got there and say they found fresh footprints in the snow and were able to track them to a train car where they found an undetonated improvised explosive device, or IED. Police say they followed the footprints in the snow to a camp trailer that was parked near a home fairly close by. Officers say 40-year-old Brent Shirai, seen right there, tried to run from the camp trailer but surrendered to police officers after a short chase. He was taken into custody, we're told, on unrelated warrants and later booked into the county jail on those warrants, but also additional charges for possession of a destructive device, which is a felony, possession of a controlled substance, also a felony, and possession of paraphernalia, which is a misdemeanor. There's also resisting and obstructing officers. Due to the dangers that were posed by the IED, the bomb squad was called to the scene to make sure the device was safe. Union Pacific also notified all trains scheduled to travel through the incident site were put on standby for about 5 hours until the scene was determined to be safe. An agent with the FBI also responding to the scene as they assisted with the investigation. The bomb squad did utilize their specialized robot to remove the IED from the train car and then detonated the device to render it safe. A search warrant was obtained and executed on the camp trailer that the suspect was in, where items similar to that device, police say, were found on the train car, as well as controlled substances and other drug paraphernalia. Federal charges for the possession and manufacturing of a destructive device pending the FBI's investigation. Still a lot left to figure out here. We'll keep you updated on Live Now from Fox. Do have to head to a quick break right now, the first one of the hour, but on the other side.
I'm telling you, man, before the inauguration day, we're going to find a lot of BS going on in the United States. Before the inauguration day, a bunch of BS is going to happen. I'm telling you, heavy bunch of BS. It's just inevitable.
Chairman of the House Oversight Committee, James Comer, along with Congressman Ronnie Jackson and Congressman Byron Donalds. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Congressman Jackson, let me start with you. What did you make of President Biden's comments today? Did that reassure you and the people of Texas and around the country that, hey, he's on top of it?
No, it's absolutely pathetic, Jason. I mean, that kind of weakness portrayed and demonstrated on the national scale or national stage like it was today from the White House by our commander in chief and our head of state. It does everything. It makes this place incredibly dangerous. I mean, you can see the dangerous times that we live in right now. But honestly, our enemies watch this. They see this weakness, and we are at great risk for the next 17 days. We need to move on. We need to get this man out of office. He had no business being our president and our commander-in-chief from day one. He's progressively gotten worse, and we would be better off as a nation right now if they would just put him in the basement for the next 17 days and not put him on TV anymore. He does not inspire confidence. It's a dangerous situation, and I think that bad things are on the horizon. I hope that we can get President Trump in place before some of it becomes a reality.
Yeah, getting President Trump there can't happen soon enough. I think our enemies will fear us, and our allies will respect us, and America will be safer. Congressman Donalds, I want to ask you, though, I don't know how you feel about it. I was offended that President Biden gave one of the second highest medal of honor. It's not called the Medal of Honor, but a medal honoring these two congressmen, Congressman Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson. What's your reaction to that?
My reaction is I'm highly offended, but I'm not surprised. Joe Biden and his White House have lived in the bizarro land where no other Americans really exist. That's why the presidency under Joe Biden has been an abject disaster. This is just one of the last pieces of icing on that cake. Look, everybody knows that the fake January 6th committee, the only purpose was to basically put a lot of propaganda out into the information stream to go after and attack Donald Trump. It failed, completely backfired. They suppressed information. They tampered with evidence. There's reports out there that they were actually tampering with witnesses sitting in front of that committee. Something that has frankly never happened in the halls of Congress, happened with this J6 committee. So for them to be rewarded for, frankly, the lack of transparency and honesty they gave to the American people is disgusting. But why are we surprised? This is the presidency of Joe Biden, the very worst presidency in the history of our country.
Chairman Comer, same question to you, because the way that committee acted, the way they excluded Republicans, excluded the speaker's ability to appoint Republicans to participate in it, the charade that they put it on, the Hollywood dressing that they put on this to try to take down Donald Trump and rely on some information that was just, I just can't believe that President Biden would do this at this time. But what's your reaction to it?
Well, it's a slap in the face to all the good Americans who actually deserve to be recognized for their public service or for their sacrifice or for their community activism. You think about all the first responders that risk their lives every day, all the military frontline soldiers who risk their lives every day, all the people that run charitable organizations and do good things at church. And none of them got recognized by Joe Biden, but he recognized Liz Cheney and Benny Thompson. And I want to remind everyone, touching on what Byron Donald said, every committee in the history of Congress is appointed by the Speaker and Minority Leader. The majority party appoints their members. The minority party appoints their members. Kevin McCarthy appointed good members to that committee, but Nancy Pelosi rejected them because she knew they would be truthful and they wouldn't go along with the false narrative that the media and the Democrats were trying to create about Donald Trump. So she kicked Jim Jordan and Jim Banks off and put Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger on there, who would just go along with all the fake propaganda that the Democrat National Committee and their friends in the left-wing media were spouting out.
All right, Congressman, we're going to ask all three of you. So we're going to start with Congressman Jackson. He gets to go first again. You're about 15 hours away from a speaker vote. How are you going to vote on that speaker vote? And I mean, by my count, there's like 5 House members who aren't going to vote for Speaker Johnson. And that's...
Of course. Anyway, so this was some updates from yesterday before Mike Johnson was finally confirmed as the Speaker of the House again for the next 2 years. With that being said, all right, so this is a video that I actually had to go search for when Biden was saying that, you know, the problem we have in the United States is actually, look, I don't even want to talk about it, but I want you to listen to Biden talk about it himself. Such a disaster. Listen. Just listen to your commander in chief. All right, here we go. Let's go. Let's flow. Let's roll.
"14 people in New Orleans. President Joe Biden is under fire for repeatedly downplaying the threat in recent years, and instead saying this is the greatest danger to national security." Watch.
According to the intelligence community, terrorism from white supremacy is the most lethal threat to the homeland today. Not ISIS, not Al-Qaeda, white supremacists. According to the United States intelligence community, domestic terrorism from white supremacists is the most lethal terrorist threat in the homeland. The most dangerous terrorist threat to our homeland is white supremacy.
The White House pressed on Biden's comments earlier, but instead just walked away.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Does the president still consider white supremacy the greatest terrorist threat to the United States?
Gotta love Lucas. All right, the backlash comes as the FBI and DHS issued a joint warning urging America's 18,000 law enforcement agencies to be on alert for copycats influenced by the terror attack on Bourbon Street. Meanwhile, Speaker Mike Johnson is calling out the Biden administration for forcing the FBI to not prioritize the right things.
For 4 years now, the Biden administration has taken its eye off the ball. I mean, they did not prioritize, in our view, the right things. And the FBI was off doing all these various and sundry things, putting their emphasis in their investigations and their eye on, conservative Catholics and concerned parents at school board meetings and all these other things. They tried to convince us that the greatest threat to the homeland was racially motivated extremism.
There you have it.
Judge, is it actually white supremacy, or like the speaker says, conservative Catholics and concerned parents that the Biden administration has focused and turned into what they say is a great threat?
Well, I think anyone who's looked at the news for the last 4 years knows what the Biden administration's agenda is. And, the fact that they would even compare ISIS to, the white supremacists, as though there's any kind of connection there. And when they're at the same time so quick to rule out terrorism, it's almost like a knee-jerk reaction. I think we talked about this yesterday. At Fort Hood, oh, that wasn't terrorism. This wasn't terrorism. But, the white supremacists are the ones who are out there. When we had the Pulse nightclub in 2016, San Bernardino in 15, a bike path in New York City. All that's we have all that.
Yeah, we have them right here, and we can pull this up, I hope. And it's a big number. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. Those are ISIS-related terror attacks. But this is a party and an administration that has an agenda, and the agenda is a narrative, and you've got to fulfill the narrative. And if it's not part of the narrative, then it's not real. And you remember this administration came in. One of the first things they did, Anthony Blinken went to the UN and said, "You have to do a study and tell us how racist we are." I just remember hitting myself in the head and saying, what the heck are they talking about? But these people, there's no reason to compare one to the other, but that's just about their ideology.
Tyrus, in an effort not to go to you first on the race question.
You know what, and I appreciate that, but at the same time, I'm offended because that's the world we live in. I always find it funny when a person, he's saying white supremacy, a white man saying white supremacy is the problem.
Yeah.
But not him.
Yeah.
Because he's got his merit badge, he has BLM and his other stuff. So, but not him. It's virtue signaling. But it wasn't about that. This was about January 6th. This was about starting to lay the tracks. You can't call a guy Hitler unless he has followers. So you continue to lay the tracks. You put party over people by saying the biggest threat was white supremacists. And who is the king of the white supremacists? Well, it's Donald Trump, President Trump. So this was part of the whole plan to get him out and not have the ability to come back. Clearly it did not work.
That's true.
But this was what this was about. So he would say the most dangerous thing that was facing us, because when you make believe monsters up When you say things like global warming is an existential threat, things you can't prove, so it can go away when you want it and it can appear when you need it, that's what this entire administration has been, smoke and mirrors. And the American people, luckily, saw through the wizard's little curtain.
Yeah, Kennedy, I agree with Tyrus. And I think that if you're President Joe Biden and you've pulled out of Afghanistan the way he did and said, listen, we have over-the-horizon capabilities, we can keep an eye on what's going on. When you have your Homeland Security Secretary say the border is secure, when you've done those things, you almost have to have someone else to point the finger to explain why you're not working on these things.
Yes, and pointing the finger is incredibly important, especially when a homegrown terrorist has given you a roadmap for how to easily kill a bunch of people. So I think accountability and blame are critical in order to keep this city and other cities across the country safe. I'm going to read you a quote from our favorite Ann Kirkpatrick, the media darling superintendent of police in New Orleans, who said this: "This is not a matter of pointing blame anywhere. A terrorist is hell-bent on destruction. This man was going to do his best, and if it hadn't been on Bourbon, he was going to do it somewhere else. We have this. We're going to implement it. End of story." She had plenty at her disposal. She didn't know what it was. She didn't know it was there. She didn't know how to use it. The safety structures have half-assedly been put in place, and they've been put in place wrong. And with that mentality, you don't have to keep anything safe. Why have cops on Times Square on New Year's Eve? Because a terrorist is just going to find a way to kill people.
Yeah.
You know, why have police at all with that sort of mentality? How does she still have a job? There should be blame. There should be accountability. There should be resignations, and they should have happened 2 days ago.
I don't think she's going to have a job that much longer, but it's your turn.
Well, Jessica, that does bring me to this question. ISIS inspired this attack. Just hours after this attack happened, you have people here in New York City protesting on behalf of Gaza, using every kind of slur and negative thing you can say about Jews and Israel and this country for supporting them. And the president, that's our president now, he stood there and told us, hey, we're going to be able to keep these terrorist organizations at bay with our over-the-horizon capabilities. Do you not feel a little bit safer knowing that President Trump's going to?
Of course, we feel safe. Look, now I don't know what's going to happen in the next 4 years. I'm sure, people want to try the commander-in-chief for sure. However, it's like, I just believe that this man projects strength. That's it. No argument. Now, hush money with Trump. What is going on? The hush money isn't going away.
This ruling and what it means for the president-elect.
Wolf, after this opinion, President-elect Trump is still a convicted felon, but there is some good news here as the judge is signaling that he does not intend to impose penalties against Trump after being convicted of 34 counts of falsifying business records last year. Now, the judge did have the option to impose a jail sentence, but in a sort of unusual move, he's previewing what he will do next Friday, saying that is not something he is going to do. He says, quote, it seems proper at this juncture to make known the court's inclination to not impose any sentence of incarceration. So he's imposing a sentence of what he describes as unconditional discharge, because that, he says, is the most viable solution. Now, unconditional discharge just means there'll be a sentencing, but there'll be no penalties, no community service, no fine, no jail. So what happens next Friday will largely be performative. Now, it's also notable the judge is making a real concession about the demands that Trump faces as president-elect. This is something that his lawyers have continuously argued. Judge Juan Merchan says, quote, to assuage the defendant's concerns regarding the mental and physical demands during the transition period, this court will permit the defendant to exercise his right to appear virtually for this proceeding if he so chooses. And this is notable because over the course of this case, Judge Juan Merchan has not been terribly sympathetic to many of the presidential-related arguments that Trump's lawyers have made. But here they're saying, yeah, we know you have a lot of time on your hand, a lot of things to do, not much time, so you should not be burdened with having to travel up to New York for this sentencing. Now, the Trump team was trying to get the entire case dismissed, have the verdict tossed out. They were not successful here, but they can continue their appeal. But in a statement today, Trump's communication director, Stephen Chung, making it clear they're not overall very happy with how this turned out, saying, quote, there should be no sentencing. And President Trump will continue fighting against these hoaxes until they are all dead, likely referring to the 4 criminal cases Trump has faced. Of course, the 2 federal cases filed by Jack Smith are dead. They have been dismissed. The Georgia case is on life support. And here in New York, Trump was convicted, but the judge here signaling he will not face any penalties.
Even though he was convicted of 34 felonies, as you point out. Paula Reed, thank you very, very much. Our legal and political experts are joining us right now. Jennifer Rogers, you're one of our legal analysts, former federal prosecutor. Trump is going to be sentenced, but the judge says he won't face any penalties. Explain from your perspective what's going on here.
Well, the judge has 2 options: a conditional discharge, which means it comes with conditions. The defendant must serve a jail sentence or pay a fine or have some sort of supervision, or an unconditional discharge, meaning there are no conditions at all. The case is just discharged. That's what Judge Marchand is signaling that he will do. And it makes sense because once this election happened and Trump was reelected, the die was cast. He was not going to prison. He was not going to be supervised. The only option really was a fine. And the maximum fine here is just not high enough to make any difference to Trump. So you might as well not issue any sentence at all. That makes the conviction final. Trump can pursue his appeal, but it makes it much less likely that the sentence will be stopped. So I think it actually was wise. I think we want closure here. We want these felonies to be finalized. That's what the people should want, what the jury verdict indicates. So I think it was actually wise of Judge Marchand to proceed this way.
It's interesting, Maggie Haberman, that the judge is now allowing Trump to appear at this sentencing hearing virtually. How has his re-election changed his view towards these cases? What do you know about the reaction inside the Trump world right now?
So the Trump team, Wolf, is debating what to do. They have 2 options. They can ask for a stay to set this aside so that there is no sentencing on Friday and then next Friday and then it continues, or they can go ahead with this sentencing virtually or not, and then the conviction is complete and then they can begin their appeals process. But that would mean that Trump is going into office having been sentenced as a convicted felon. Neither of these are options that Donald Trump loves. He's facing a different reality now. He's not facing a re-election campaign. He has been elected to a 2nd term. Constitutionally, that's all he can serve. So the political benefit to him in, showing up in court and fighting for himself is maybe less than it would be otherwise. That having been said, he's very angry about these cases, and that hasn't changed. He's very angry about this case in particular, and he may decide that he wants some kind of a display of fighting it. I don't think we're going to know that for another 2 days or so.
Elise Adamson, another former federal prosecutor, is with us. This is how the Trump team in a statement responded to this, and I'm quoting now. Today's order by the deeply conflicted acting Justice Marchand in the Manhattan DA witch hunt is a direct violation of the Supreme Court's immunity decision. The Constitution demands that it be immediately dismissed. How do you respond to that?
Well, Wolf, I'd respond that Judge Marchand made it very clear that this decision of his, this order, does not contradict the immunity ruling because none of the conduct he found were official acts. And because all of fell outside of that immunity ruling, then...
Thank you for tuning in to the live show. You know what time it is. Okay, so who are we blocking right now? Let's see what we can block. All right, this guy. You know what? I don't want to block anybody. I'm just going to put you on timeout. Okay, so when you come back from your timeout, you're going to come back with some respect. Okay, I know you get your attention right here by 24 hours. Okay, with that being said, thank you for tuning in to the live show. And let's enjoy the show.
The jury's verdict should be preserved and dismissal is not required at this time. What else was the Trump team going to say, quite frankly? I mean, it's the same script, it's the same narrative. And so we shouldn't be surprised that that's the reaction. But let's be clear, Judge Marchand made a very detailed analysis on why this was constitutional and why the jury verdict should stand. And I'm sure that Trump's team will appeal it, but the reasoning was legally sound.
Jennifer, so is this case effectively right now over, or potentially could it be revived once Trump has left office?
Well, if the sentencing happens next Friday and he is sentenced but not sentenced to any penalties, then it is over except for the appeals. Of course, Trump has the right to appeal. He has lots of complaints about rulings during the trial and so on. He has his presidential immunity argument. So the appeals will still happen. But if the sentencing does go, then we at least won't have the whole case held in abeyance, which was one of the options until we got the judge's ruling today. So it will be over, but not yet completely finalized until the appeals have run their course, which in New York can take up to a couple of years.
As you know, Maggie, Trump has suggested many times during the campaign trail, for example, that he wants to enact some measure of revenge for the cases against him. Is this likely to further that desire on his part?
Certainly don't think it's going to diminish it, Wolf. I mean, Trump was coming in prior to this. The big thing that his legal team accomplished was getting the sentencing delayed. In September, they found out it was going to be delayed past Election Day. That was a huge moment of relief for Trump, his political team, his legal team. This moment was always going to come at some point. But for Trump, who entered office in 2017 with these questions about Russia and his campaign hanging over him, this is a source of tension that he doesn't, I think, want to deal with. And it is also a reminder that he is still facing certain legal challenges. He's obviously not facing the ones that he was facing when he had been indicted 4 times and convicted 1. The circumstances are very different, especially on the federal level. But he is facing these civil cases. He still has these challenges in the New York Attorney General case, the E. Jean Carroll cases, and so forth. And so, it's not all gone.
Elise, how do you think Trump's appeal in this case is likely to play out? And how does Trump's being the sitting president of the United States impact all of this?
Wolf, that's a very good question. I mean, we're in unprecedented times right now. I think the immunity ruling shocked most of us in the legal community. So, at this point, it is hard for me to forecast how this will ultimately come out. Now, if he goes to sentencing on the 10th, as was
everybody's talking about, I just saw somebody in the chat say, it is sad that America has a president which needs to pardon himself during the inauguration. It's just sad. What about a sitting president who pardoned his son? Do you have anything to say about that? I don't know. You let me know. What do you have to say about that? A sitting president who pardons his son after saying that he would not pardon his son. He said he had faith in the Department of Justice. He had faith in the jury of his peers. And yet he went ahead to pardon his son. I mean, everybody, that's something that I've noticed. Like, the Republican Party would say, well, Trump is the greatest man to ever live. The Democrat would say Joe Biden is the greatest man to ever live. I just follow common sense, okay? It's just common sense, facts.
Already stated, he'll be able to appeal on the merits of the case, and then they will go back into these rulings and to see whether or not an appellate court agrees with Judge Merchan that no official acts were at play. And because this is so new, it's just hard to tell. Now, with respect to President-elect Trump being the sitting president, again, because of his likely sentence, which is nothing, no penalty, I think very much will happen, except his legal team will fight very hard to have this conviction reversed.
I say, neither of them are great, Joe Biden or Trump. I would choose Trump 1,000 times every single time against Joe Biden, against Kamala, against Hillary Clinton, against who? There's nobody that you can put beside Trump that I would choose, except you put somebody like Vivek. If you put somebody like Vivek, I'd probably choose Vivek over Trump. If you put somebody like, it's only Vivek that I could see in my mind that I would vote for besides Trump. Everybody else, I'm voting Trump, hands down. But if you put a Vivek beside Trump and I had an opportunity to cast a vote, I would vote for Vivek. But aside that, I'm voting Trump all the way. Whoever you put beside Trump, because he's better. He's more experienced. He has shown that he has tough, thick skin. There's nobody that can actually affect people's lives, that can affect this foreign leaders the way Trump can. He is a man of very, it's like he projects power. He projects strength. With him in the White House, you know that nobody wants smoke with the United States.
And they'll also continue to fight very hard to control this narrative. So I think we can expect more of the same narrative spin and a lot of
Vivek, whatever. Okay. I mean, what am I going to get paid for pronouncing his name right? Children.
legal wrangling.
We shall see. All right, guys. Thank you.
There you have it. There you have it. There you have it. There you have it. This hush money situation is just like is headache for the OG. Straight up headache.
Welcome back. Now to one of the lawmakers who changed his vote to help Mike Johnson.
The legend Mike Johnson. My boy. The legend Mike Johnson. Look at him. Straight up there. Speaker of the House. Shout out to the OG Trump for definitely endorsing him. Yeah, man. We have work to do. Work to do moving forward. You can hate. That's all you can do. You can hate. That's all you can do. Hate. You can hate. That's all you can do, Democrats. Okay, you can hate. And Trump haters can only hate. But he's getting work done.
And become Speaker of the House. South Carolina Republican Congressman Ralph Norman. Congressman, thanks for being here. Tell me why, sir, did you vote against Speaker Johnson to begin with if there was such clear consensus that it wasn't going to be anyone else?
Let me say this. We never know how, with 435 members, how people are going to vote. I didn't know how anybody else was going to vote. We had met with Speaker Johnson yesterday for an extended period of time, and I just didn't come away with the feeling that the or the willingness to fight for Trump's agenda was there. And I use as a backdrop what's happened the last 14 months, where you had 1,500-page bills, omnibills, that you couldn't read, where you had no spending cuts to offset $100 billion in new spending, where you had just no, and I know we had a slim majority, but that's over with now. What we wanted to impress with him yesterday was, are you going to fight for these things that we've been asking and suggesting for, like a balanced budget, like offsets, like really getting behind all of the Trump agenda? I knew President Trump was supporting Mike Johnson. He called, and we had a great conversation.
Okay, so this is the deal. Everybody want to talk about Trump. You know, Trump ain't it. Trump is worse. Him and Biden, they're the same. No, they're not the same. Let me tell you why. During Trump's term, you had opportunity zones. What people are going to say, well, opportunity zones is for people who actually can afford a property or develop a property. All right, fair. What about HBCU historical funding? HBCU funding. What about HBCU funding, everybody? Okay. Nobody remembers HBCU funding? Are you guys going to remember HBCU funding or not? Okay. 2, 3, right to try. Okay. Right to try. Can anybody remember right to try? I guess not. But I'll remind you, this was during Trump's term, his first term. First Step Act. Do you remember the prison reform that Obama couldn't get done, that Trump got done? Even CNN commended Trump for signing the First Step Act, prison reform that freed a lot of people. Do you guys remember prison reform? Yeah. I guess not. Abraham Accord. Anybody remembers the Abraham Accord? I guess not. There was peace. Did you have Ukraine, Russia? Did you have Israel, Palestinians? Did you have Israel and Iranian people? You didn't have that. But you forget stuff because you're feeble-minded. A lot of people are feeble-minded. They're just like, NPCs. You forget stuff. You forget how good you had it. Now you have billions of munitions sent to Ukraine and saying you want peace in Ukraine, but yet you are supporting the annihilation of a lot of people. What are you doing? What are you doing? All right, shout out to Crazy Horse. Thank you. He says, brother, keep on the great work. New fan. I appreciate you, Crazy Horse. God bless you. Thank you for the super chat. God bless you, Crazy Horse. Thank you. So it's like everybody want to talk about how bad Trump is or was or whatever. But this man advocated for peace. And I always say something, only strong leaders knows the benefit of peace. Only strong leaders knows that without peace, you can never have prosperity. You need peace. This was the first President Trump. He went to meet Kim Jong-un. He was having conversations with Vladimir Putin. And people were like, this man, why are you talking to a dictator? Why are you talking to this and that? If you're going to be the leader of the free world, why wouldn't you have a conversation with every other leader? You have to be a diplomat if you're going to be the president of the greatest nation on earth. You have to be a diplomat. You don't want war, even though you know you could probably destroy a lot of country if you decide to actually do go to war. But it's like, why do that? Why don't you just advocate for peace? Okay, why don't you just advocate for peace? Isn't that something that you should consider? Like, instead of funding wars, why don't you just say, you know what? Let's do a negotiation deal. What do you want? What does he want? How can we come and meet in the middle? But no, you want to fund the war because you want to do your corruption and how to steal and destroy. Because you don't care how long it takes to build back the city, do you? No, you don't. You don't, because you don't have families over there in Ukraine. You don't have families over there in Gaza. You don't have family over there in goddamn this other countries like burning down. You want to fund it. Send them more money. Putin has to lose. Putin has to lose. Send them more billions. Putin has to lose. Okay, you are so bent on Putin losing and you forget the people that are actually dying every day. Instead of you to advocate for peace. No. Now Zelensky is talking about, you know what, we want peace. Oh, so now you want peace? But you want our money. So that's the game, man. Y'all want to talk bad about Trump, but you had secured border. You had secured border. You had the lowest mortgage rate. Yes, y'all. Don't forget, you had the lowest mortgage rate. You had the lowest gas prices. Don't forget. You forget quickly. That's the thing. Like, why? How do you forget this quick? You forget stuff. Now you have a president that slides off stages, falls off bikes, sleeps on the world stage like in Angola, doesn't know where to go, walking into the Amazon forest. He wants to go meet the lions and the cheetahs and the hyenas. Like, what are we doing? And yet you're still saying that this guy is like the best president of our generation, Joe Biden. This man that falls off airplane stairs. This is the first time in history a president would be falling off airplane stairs. Like literally falling off the stairs. What? What are we doing? God. What is this? Yeah, Trump is the bad guy. Yeah, Trump is the one that is old, incompetent, all of that stuff. Yet Trump is the bad guy. When you have a president that is falling off stages, cannot speak to his people, cannot protect the border, at least according to what we've seen, cannot even stop, literally could not stop Putin from going into Ukraine. Yet Trump is the bad person. I see.
But I knew where he
What did he say to you, sir?
He just said Mike Johnson is the only one that's got the support among the body to become speaker. And I get that. But, you know, the only way I had to let my voice be heard was what I did. I would do it again. We went into meetings, the meeting off the floor, and I said, Mike, are you going to give us specific examples of fighting for the things we mentioned. Will you give us your word? He said yes. So I said, okay, we'll take you at your word. That's why I changed my vote. And
see, no matter what you do to people or say to people or help them open their eyes to see the light, they can never be enlightened. This person in the chat is saying, do not be childish. I've seen young people fall off stage consistently, like your president, President Joe Biden, falls off stage. He's fell off stages, fell off bikes, fell off airplane stairs. How many times? You want us to play you videos? Like, what are you doing? This is the thing about me. When people do stupid stuff, I tell you. Like when Trump says he wants to give total, well, he didn't say total, but he says he wants to give immunity to law enforcement officers. I said, you know what? I support you supporting law enforcement, but I don't think you should give blanket immunity to law enforcement officer. I could go against, I could say things that I don't support that Trump says or does, but you guys cannot say things that Biden does wrong. Biden has been incompetent for years, falling off stairs. What? This is supposed to be the strongest leader in the world. And he's falling off airplane stairs. And you're saying, well, I've seen young people fall off stairs, like the way Joe Biden falls off stairs and cannot literally speak to his people. What are you doing, dog? Like, what are you doing? Even after the first debate, this guy could not talk. Trump had to look at him and be like, are you okay? Like, this man could not talk, and you still had Democrat who says, oh, one bad night isn't that bad. Take a look at his track record. Look at his track record, y'all. He's better than Trump. Even after the first debate, he got eliminated after the first debate because it was like, yo, this guy cannot run for second term. And some Democrats still said this guy can run for second term. I'm like, what are you doing? You hate Trump this much that you would hate your country? Why would you hate the United States? Because you hate Trump. Like, people want Trump to fail so bad, and they don't know that if Trump fails, him being the United States president, that is automatic failure for the United States. Now that Joe Biden is president, I don't want Joe Biden to fail. He just already automatically failed. Okay? But you shouldn't be rooting for your president of your country to fail. But a lot of people want Trump to fail. It's like, he's not even the president yet, but you already want him to fail. Like, how? Don't you know if he fails, the United States actually fails? Or you think the president is going to fail and the country is going to be booming? I don't think so.
And that's why
Did he make any concrete concessions to you?
No. There were no concessions and no quid pro quo. People are going to make up things that they were. I don't operate like that. And neither does Mike Johnson. But, our thing is, my main points were what Mike knew, has known all along. I don't think he understood the opposition that was for him. You saw the ones that just did not vote or were quiet when the vote came around. But I think now he understands the fact that no more suspension votes where you rely on more Democrat votes than Republicans. That's what's killing the country. If we're going to do the same thing over and over again as we have done for the last 14 months, we're going to be in the same position. I'm just not willing to go along with that, and I didn't. And Mike gave me the assurance that he was going to.
What do you say, sir, to your colleagues who, I hear from Republicans that the GOP is good at getting in its own way. What's your response to that?
Mm-hmm. That who's getting their own way? I couldn't
Republicans
understand.
getting their own way.
No, Republicans are free thinkers. I mean, what's an additional hour into the General Assembly where we debated this? What's wrong with that? Nothing's wrong. We're free-spirited. We have all different ideas. Not everybody agrees with me, nor do I agree with them. But having healthy discussion like we had, having healthy meetings like we did, I think makes sense. We ought to do more of it. We're not like lemmings that are going to follow this where this country goes off the cliff, and that's where we've been headed, both Republican and Democrat. It's got to come to an end, and I was glad it worked out the way it did. Mike has got a tremendous opportunity to show the American people that not only is he just going to say it, he's going to fight it. He's going to have Trump in his Trump backing him up, which is all a good thing.
Do you think, though, that, having this stretch out and look a little tenuous for a moment, doesn't that give the Democrats a little bit of a, something to chew on?
Absolutely not. The country had the last year to chew on what's happened to them over the last 4 years under the Biden debacle. And 76 million people chose Donald Trump.
Well, what it looks like, though, to regular people, sir, what it looks like is that if the Republicans can't get all their members in line to elect a speaker and get the basic governing, functions in order, that it looks like it would be reasonable to expect that most bills are going to require Democratic votes. You don't think that's the case?
I do not. I think what's changed is we've got the House, the Senate, and we've got a president who's willing to exert leverage to get what's best for the country, including, the spending cuts, the border wall, the crime under control, all the above. And he will force his way. And that's when we had the conversation with him. I said, Mr. President, it's going to take everything, all the political muscle you have to get this body to go along, both Republicans and whatever Democrats come along, which I don't know that they will on his main agenda. But we're behind him. It's over with now. Did it take a little longer? Yes, but it was time well spent. And the people who are disagreeing with me the most or texting me, my response to them, if they had seen everything that was discussed, they would agree with me.
Did you hear from anybody who was threatening your seat or saying they might primary you when you were holding up this process?
Look, I have the answer is yes, but I've always had that. Look, I've never based my vote on what my political future was. If people want to primary me, do it. If they want to run somebody else, it's a free country. And it makes all of us better. So I don't respond to that, and neither do I respond to threats of people doing different things. I do what I think is right, and that's why I'm in the political arena, and that's why I'm here to represent the people
I support
in
that.
this district.
I support that. But get in line, though. Get in line, though. But I support that. You should be able to choose who you want to vote for or whatever, as long as they can have a conversation with you, and their views sort of kind of align with yours. Yeah, so I support that.
So my next guest was a yes for Johnson, but also has a warning for the House Speaker. Texas Republican Congressman Chip Roy joins me now. So, Congressman, first, I want to ask you for your reaction about this New York judge, Juan Merchant, saying that Trump set a sentencing hearing now for January 10th before inauguration, but maybe signaling no jail time. What do you think about this that just came down?
Yeah, I mean, that's a power play by the New York, justice system that I think is a slap in the face of the President of the United States. I think we're going to have some serious conversations about what that means, in defense of the president. Most of these cases have gone away, as they should. That lawfare was a, underhanded way to try to prevent President Trump from being able to be elected. And then since he's been elected, they're just trying to undermine his authority. I don't think that's going to stand. We'll move forward, and we're all going to be supporting the president, supporting his agenda over the next couple of weeks.
Now, to what happened today, you initially decided to pass on the first vote, and at the end of the first vote, you came back in and voted for Johnson. Was that a tactic or a message for him?
Well, look, it was very important for a group of us to make clear that, we're going to expect the agenda that the president ran on to get delivered. Mike Johnson is a friend. He's a friend to all of us. But we weren't satisfied with the way the 218th Congress unfolded. Keith Self expressed that very well. So we were making very clear that there's a block of us that are going to be watching very closely. We need to deliver. We need to actually secure the border. We need to actually pass policies before there's any conversation about future flow or any kind of status. We're going to do our job to secure the border, remove illegal aliens from this country. We're going to stop spending money we don't have. We're going to deliver on what the president ran on, and that's what matters. And so on the vote on the floor, we were being very clear that there's a block of us that are going to demand that on the policy changes. The President of the United States backed the Speaker, so we backed the Speaker in this election, but we're going to be watching watching every single vote. And we've got to make sure that we get what we set out to do and that we do what we said we would do when we ran for election this last year.
Congressman, you had said on X that there were more than 3 people who initially have reservations who voted or who didn't vote against Johnson. You know, what are the reservations then?
Well, the reservations are we spent close to $3 trillion last year with more Democrat votes than Republican votes. We had multiple bills that were passed with a majority, lacking a majority of Republican votes. We saw what unfolded with a promise to say that we would secure the border of the United States before we funded Ukraine. Those were all failures, but that's looking in the rearview mirror. Today's a new day. It's 2025. The president asked us to get behind Mike Johnson. We did. It is now Mike Johnson's house to deliver. It is now Mike Johnson's job to deliver on the president's agenda. We will back him as long.
Exactly. I like this. Okay. This is what I like. Okay. We backed him because the president said he wants Mike Johnson to be the Speaker of the House because the people voted for the OG, the legend, Trump. Okay. So he's the people's voice at this moment.
As long as we're delivering on that agenda. And so that is what we need to do right now is come together to do that. We've got to stop spending money we don't have and racking up deficits. We've got to secure the border. We've got to get rid of the bureaucrats. We've got to make our country strong again. There can be no room for doubt here. We've got to have leadership to get that done. And that's why today's vote. That's why there were 9 people who withheld their votes. It sends a message that we're going to be watching that.
Congressman, are you concerned that the drama we saw fold out today undermined in some way the ability to get President-elect Donald Trump's agenda fully passed through the House?
Not at all. Speaker Johnson was elected on the first ballot, but we were making very clear that we're going to demand to get the things done that need to get done. And that's what the president wants. We've had lots of conversations with the president. He wants us to deliver. He's had some very specific conversations with us and with the speaker. And I know those were going on the floor with those who initially voted no. But we've got a long ways to go. We've had too many failures in the past. The American people didn't vote for more of the same. So again, this is now Speaker Johnson's House of Representatives to deliver for the president. So we're going to expect delivery of all of the things the American people sent us here to do.
Do you think that all of the tax cuts, for instance,
I like what I'm hearing,
the president would like to see, in addition to extending the tax cut, but also talking about no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, can all of that get passed along with border security? I know your district is in Texas, so can it all get passed?
If the speaker does his job, I think we can get that done for the president, more importantly for the country. But importantly, when you're talking about tax policy, we need all of that to be not just deficit neutral, but reducing deficits. And not with made up growth rates, but with very specific recognition that whatever we do with tax policy must have strong offsetting cuts. And we need to undo the damage of the Biden administration, repeal the so-called Inflation Reduction Act with all the climate subsidies, repeal the student loan fiasco, repeal all of the expansion of food stamps, do all of the stuff the American people sent us here to do. We could save a couple of $1 trillion out of the gate if we reverse Biden's damaging policies, secure the border, and then we can get busy in reconciliation, getting us to deficit reduction.
So you want to see border go first in the last 30 seconds we have with a 1-vote, basically majority. Yeah. Can you do that?
Well, we have to, and now it's the job of the speaker to get it done. I will do everything in my power to support that, but there are going to be some guardrails and some red lines that I'm going to say are necessary to get my support. And we're talking about spending, we talk about the border, those things matter. So we've got to get in a room, we've got to work together, and we've got to deliver. That's what the American people sent us here to do. That's what the president wanted us to do. So we will now work to get it done, and the speaker has got to deliver.
Represent.
There you have it. I like this, though. I like this. Coming together to get the job done. Shout out to the Republican Party right there in Congress.
People in New Orleans are sending an unmistakable message. They will not let this attack or the attackers' diluted ideology overcome us. None of us should fear that he'll overcome us. We're going to continue to relentlessly pursue ISIS and other terrorist organizations where they are, and they'll find no safe harbor here.
President Biden vowing to take on ISIS following the terror attack in New Orleans after meeting with his Homeland Security team in the Situation Room.
The questions remain about the reason behind the rising terror threat and what the incoming Trump administration can do to stop it.
Jay Johnson served as DHS Secretary under President Obama and joins us now in studio. Mr. Secretary, if you had a meeting today to talk about 2 days since the attack, and you had all your department heads there, what would be the first thing you begin to ask? What would you begin to probe? What would you begin to do?
Well, here's what I would say, first of all. We're in the midst of an evolving, heightened threat picture right now. With the collapse of the Assad regime in Syria, with the attack 2 days ago, I'm sure ISIS feels emboldened right now. And we have several major security events coming up. The inauguration for one, the Super Bowl in a couple weeks after that. And I would say what I did say to my people at DHS when I was in office, don't just respond to the last attack. Anticipate the next one, which may be of a very different character. Now, we've known for some time that the possibility of an attack with a vehicle is a weapon, or a mass shooting, is something to anticipate and prepare for. We should not believe that we've seen the last of this type of vehicle attack. And so, but I always encourage my people, be vigilant and think about what could come next. Don't just plug the last hole.
So, Mr. Secretary, what do you make of, the intel community, the counterterrorism groups inside of the country, both Democrat and Republican, and they come from that 9/11 era of country first, and they fight for the country as a result of that. But there's been many people inside the community that said we're focused on the wrong things. We're not focusing on the ideology of these folks, going after them. We're seeing people in the middle of the street with ISIS flags and Hamas flags. These are threats to the country. Sunday, right after the event. So what do you make of that? Is it fair to say that we're not focusing on the right things right now?
Well, I'll count myself as among the 9/11 community.
Okay.
I was here in Manhattan on 9/11, 2001. I was in the Pentagon as the senior legal official, 2009 to 2012, and we took a lot of these guys out. For a while, you can see the terrorist threat to our country evolving from terrorist-directed attacks, where a terrorist organization overseas directs a large-scale attack on the United States, 9/11 being the prime example. The attempted underwear bombing, you may recall, the attempted shoe bombing, Richard Reeves, those were terrorist-directed attacks. We evolved from that in about 2013, 2014, to what we now refer to as terrorist-inspired attacks, where a terrorist organization on the internet will attempt to inspire someone who is living in this country to radicalize and take it upon themselves to carry out a terrorist attack. We saw a spate of these in 2014, 2015, 2016, when I was in DHS, and that threat has not gone away, and I'm concerned that it's at a heightened level right now.
Mr. Secretary, critics argue that, in part, the current administration has emboldened these inspired terrorist attacks, in part because taking the eye off the ball, focusing toward Americans, as well as sort of a different focus instead of on threats, on one of phraseology and sort of a tepid approach to the international community. The question, sir, is what do you want to see in the next administration so that we take steps forward and not steps back?
Well, no matter who the president is, no matter whose administration it is, I believe there needs to be an intense focus among counterterrorism officials in multiple agencies right now on this evolving, heightened threat picture that we see right now, no matter who the president is. And there are counterterrorism professionals in the Pentagon, at the FBI, at NCTC, CIA, ODNI, multiple agencies that are charged with looking at this evolving threat picture. Our political leadership has to pay close attention to the evolving intelligence picture to make sure we set the right priorities and we do not take our eye off the ball.
And Mr. Secretary, foreign governments, as you know, help you. This guy went over there for 10 days in Egypt.
Yeah.
And if he was hanging out with the wrong guys, the way I've been told, when the communication's good, we find out about it.
That is absolutely true. I can testify from personal experience. that the relationships we have with other governments, other intelligence communities is crucial to preventing someone even from entering the United States, getting into this hemisphere.
Yeah.
If you have a good relationship with an intelligence agency overseas, one where on the surface we don't have such a great relationship, you can get a tip from that intelligence agency. Hey, we just found out such and such may be trying to come to your hemisphere.
Super beneficial.
Ms. Secretary, great to see you. Thank you.
That was actually very helpful. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Do you want us to keep going, or you're good for the night? You want to call it a night, or you want to keep going?
Let's bring in the mayor of West Mifflin, Pennsylvania, Chris Kelly. The borough is home to U.S. Steel's Irvin plant. Mayor, thanks for being with us. You are a supporter of this deal. You want to see it happen. Biden just blocked it. Why is it so important to you that the deal actually get done?
Well, there's three sister plants right here in the Mon Valley, the Clairton, Edgar Thomson, and Irvin Works in our community. And they rely on each other. And Nippon, I've met with them extensively over the last 9-10 months. And the guarantees that they've put on the table in writing would solidify generations of steelmaking in our valley for decades to come. Steel started here in Pittsburgh. It'll be a shame that in a year or 2 years, there is no U.S. Steel in Pittsburgh. I'm 100% behind this deal.
But Chris, there is a lot of division even among mayors in your part of Pennsylvania about whether this is a good deal or a bad deal. I know the concern being that U.S. Steel will move out of the Pittsburgh area. But where do you go from here? Because these two are saying they're going to fight this in the courts.
Absolutely. And when you said there's some division among mayors, I have yet to talk to one single mayor that's opposed to the deal. Some of them want more questions asked and answered, but nobody is opposed to it. This is a benefit to our communities. And it's something that has to be done to preserve the steel industry. Now, where do we go from here? I think we have to be unified. I'm not a proponent for either party in this, but I am for our community and our residents and safeguarding the industry that we've had and known to love for the last 120 years.
You know, we've talked.
I mean, this shouldn't even be a conversation. Why would you want to sell U.S. steel to Japan? It's just like, it's a no-brainer deal. Like, it's a no. You don't sell U.S. steel to another country. That's why it's called U.S. Steel. Come on, yo.
Talk to some steel workers, not union leaders, but the guys who actually do the work, and they seem to be very in favor of the deal happening. President-elect Trump has said he also opposes the deal, but a lot of these guys who want to see the deal go through supported him. If you had a chance to get a message in front of the president-elect on this deal, what would it be?
Mr. President-elect, please come visit me. Let me take you up to the gate. Let me introduce you to some of the workers who overwhelmingly support this. Overwhelmingly, by 80-90% of the membership support this deal. And it's imperative to find out what the workers feel, not one or two individuals on the international side. These are family people that are going to be decimated. We need to talk to the worker.
Chris, you tried to meet with the Biden White House. Did they even get back to you?
Actually, they did, saying that they would take it under consideration. I can't fault them for that. I mean, it's been, it's a multitasking position as the president and as chief of staff. But I thought that there should be more consideration given to the workers. Right. Here you have CFIUS that comes out and says, it's not a national security threat. The president's own cabinet, who he points to this, positions on CFIUS, and the scholars, the think tanks, all of them have said there is no national security threat. And then to lay your hat on this, that it's a national security threat, is a disservice to these hardworking individuals.
Chris.
So wait, what is he saying? He wants to sell U.S. steel? Because, I mean, Yeah, is that what he's saying? Or he's saying he doesn't want to sell U.S. steel? U.S. steel. Telling U.S. steel is a no-no, in my opinion.
This is, and I don't really, you know what? I don't really care. Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
The reality is nothing like the dystopian picture that the Republicans are trying to paint of this senile, doddering president, and he's as sharp as a tack.
Anybody, any aide who engages with him or reporters, we can see this. The gears of his mind are working.
And Biden is actually in good shape.
Okay, that was really incompetent analysis. It was totally off the wall and wrong. The media claiming Biden is sharp as a tack. Special counsel Robert Hur said he's too senile to stand trial over taking U.S. secrets. It calls into question who's calling the shots in the White House. So we got news. Joe Biden wants to undermine Trump with a new executive order to permanently ban new lease sales for oil and gas drilling in certain regions of the outer continental shelf. And also this, stay on this for just a second. Axios is reporting that Joe Biden and his team were talking about bombing Iran's nuclear facilities. That would have handed Trump a major problem. Joining us now, they were thinking of bombing it just recently. Joining us now, Kingsview Asset Management CIO, Fox News contributor Scott Martin. Scott, you know, when we see the media roll on this with this idea that Biden is all there, when even his aides are leaking that he's not, and now they're trying to undermine, Biden's trying to undermine Trump. Trump wants to unleash U.S. oil and gas to lower inflation, plus stop Russia and Iran's cash flow machine driving Russia's war in Ukraine and Iran's terrorism in the Mideast. But they think Biden is so compos mentis that he's okay with all of these moves and what he's doing. He's undermining Trump here.
Yeah, I mean, the moves he's made, EMAC, with the Middle East and Russia so far, I think we could agree those were pretty bad. So I don't know where some of those commentators were getting their analysis. But look, I mean, you're putting Europe at risk and a lot of the world at risk, too, with what we've done with Iran. As far as the Green New Deal goes, maybe that was the deal, EMAC. Maybe the Green New Deal was the cash bill that Iran was going to have by exporting all the oil that we didn't export. So, look, going forward, Trump's solutions are going to be much better than what we've had and something that the world can actually be excited about than being held hostage by these terrorist organizations.
You know, the other thing, too, is China is saying Biden is totally wrong with his climate agenda push. China is sticking with hybrid cars, so moving away from electric cars and doing hybrid gas cars. So Biden was totally wrong with trying to get rid of gas cars and only going electric. It's so off the wall. This Biden White House is truly one of the worst we've ever seen. They also, according to the Free Beacon, let Iran rake in at least $200 billion. The Biden White House consciously ignored U.S. intelligence showing Iran was expanding its oil and fuel smuggling operation dramatically under Biden. Iran funds Hezbollah. Hamas has been attacking Israel almost daily. Iran attacks its own people. Major humanitarian violations, Amnesty International, UN watchdogs say. But Obama and Biden are giving them, Iran, more money. That undercuts their claim of being humanitarian.
Very much so, and it puts the world at risk, EMAC. And also, look at some of those numbers, too, you mentioned. I mean, we wondered over the course of the last few months and years where Iran was getting all that money. I think we figured it out. So if you're looking going forward and look at what Trump is going to impose here, at least for the United States oil production and certainly around the world, I think you got to look at a greener pasture here going forward, at least for somebody to stand up to those in the Middle East.
Scott, do you think Trump can clean all of this up?
I think it's going to be a long haul, EMAC. I think there's going to be some fits and starts, but at least the start is going to be done versus the give up that we've had so far.
All right, Scott Martin, you're terrific. Happy New Year. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. You know what time it is. It is your boy Genesis. Yes, sir. We are going through updates across the nation. So, are you having a good time? Are you having a good time right now? Let me know in the chat. Let me know in the chat, man. Look, it's a lot going on in the United States. I know it's new things every day. It is the 4th day of the year 2025. And guess what? It's going bunkers already.
The unified GOP is essential for Donald Trump's success once he takes office on January 20th, especially in the early months of his presidency. The Republicans narrowly passed their first test of 2025, re-electing Mike Johnson as Speaker of the House on the first ballot. Now, it took a little bit of politicking after the initial vote, but Johnson secured the speakership with only one defection. President-elect Trump reportedly played a big role in whipping the votes. According to our own Bret Baier, Trump made calls all morning prior to the vote, but his most consequential call was as the vote was locked up with Mike Johnson short of the majority and 3 members having voted against him. Congresswoman Nancy Mace and others convened the standouts Ralph Norman and Keith Self in a side office off the House floor for a conference call where the president-elect was on speakerphone. We're told that he said it would be disrespectful to Americans who voted in a historic presidential election to have this speaker's vote go to a second or a third ballot. And it would be disrespectful to me, he said, ending with, fellas, we have a lot to do. Let's get to it. Now, the media has been salivating over the idea of a fractured party, but they've once again had the wind taken out of their sails. Now that Congress has their housekeeping settled, they're ready to move right along with supporting the America First agenda.
The path of prosperity has long been paved with policies that put America and Americans first. And that is what we will champion in the 119th Congress. Sadly, for the past 4 years of divided government, too many politicians in Washington have done the opposite. Open borders and overregulation have destroyed our cities and stifled innovation. Inflation and weak leadership have left Americans poorer, and they have placed our country in a perilous position.
President Trump was quick to congratulate Johnson on being reelected Speaker and explaining that the process brought House Republicans even closer together. The president-elect was in constant communication with Republicans, working the phones this morning, and he reportedly called 2 of the 3 holdouts from the golf course. Meanwhile, things aren't going that smoothly on the other side of the aisle. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, of course, gave this rousing speech to his party after the Speaker election.
Democrats will never abandon the long walk toward freedom. We will fight hard to defend the freedom of opportunity that makes the American dream possible. We will fight hard for the freedom to vote.
I love that word, fight, 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 fight. And in the other chamber of Congress, Kamala Harris forgot the Pledge of Allegiance at the beginning of the Senate's swearing-in ceremony.
Please join me in pledging allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now that is something only Kamala Harris could do. Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna joins me now. Congresswoman, when we look back in time, we see Kevin McCarthy and the vote to make him Speaker, and it went 15 ballots, 15. But something was different today. And I want to pull this up, what was different. This is new reporting from Real Clear Politics about President Trump's involvement. The message from the president-elect, according to a source with direct knowledge of that call, was we had the most historic election. You guys are stepping all over it by being ridiculous, speaking to the holdouts. I won all these swing states, but while Democrats are sticking together, you 2 guys are screwing it all up. It seems that we did not go to 15 rounds today because of the political capital of President Donald J. Trump. Your thoughts?
Well, he is known for the art of the deal. And I would like to just say that for those holdouts, they actually did get assurances, not just from President Trump, but also from Speaker Johnson, that we were going to do something in debt reconciliation and ensure that we are saving for Americans and future generations. So I don't think today would have gone the way it did unless it was for President Trump. So thank you for that. Being that I was one of the holdouts back in January, we were trying to change the institution. We did, and we saw today that we are a unified GOP moving forward.
Well, that's good to hear that they got a policy deliverable, so maybe something that is worth it in the long run. But, Congresswoman, as you look at this and you think about a narrow 217 to 215 majority, which is what it will be when you count for the 2 going into the Trump administration, what does this say about passing major legislation? Do you think there will be an issue?
I think that there's going to be a lot of people that might try to become mini mansions, is what I like to call it. But at the end of the day, when we ran for re-election, we all ran on the America First agenda, really securing our borders, eliminating some of these crazy taxes, but then also to ensuring that the American people were put first and foremost and not being forgotten. And so I think that all of those messaging items are winnable, especially in a narrow majority. And I just hope that my colleagues decide to work together. Again, Kayleigh, we have our first big test that's going to be on budget reconciliation. We're actually starting meetings tomorrow. I'm not even leaving Washington. We're staying through the weekend, and hopefully we'll be able to deliver wins for America.
The Republican Party has to stick together because this is all it is. Stop trying to, I don't know, be a revolutionary or whatever. The revolutionary is the OG Trump, okay? Just go with the flow. Go with the fact that he is the commander-in-chief. 76 million people voted for this man, okay? He won the swing state, all swing state. He won electoral college. Okay, so everybody get behind him and let the agenda pass, man. Y'all stop doing too much. Stop doing too much, because this ain't it. This right here ain't it. Talking about, I was one of the people that held the vote last year. You better don't hold no vote this year.
It is too expensive. It's too bad for the Democrats that somebody hadn't come out and expressed it that vocally and that succinctly 5 months ago.
Well, I mean, before I let you in, Mondaire, let me just to Gail's point, actually, play Hakeem Jeffries from just a year ago on the same occasion, essentially. And this is what his message was then.
House Democrats will always put American values over autocracy, benevolence over bigotry, the Constitution over the cult, democracy over demagogues, maturity over Mar-a-Lago.
You don't need a political science degree to see what he's doing there differently. He didn't mention democracy but once. In that section that we played earlier today, that message is really to the wayside. It's all about the economy.
I don't want to be overly dramatic about this. I don't think there was anything revelatory about what Hakeem Jeffries said today in his speech. There have been a lot of resources in campaign ads and certainly a lot of time spent by Democratic House candidates and Senate candidates acknowledging and speaking to the economic pain that Americans have been feeling. And in fact, if you look at what Democrats in the majority did when I was in Congress, in the 117th Congress, we actually had plans for how to bring down the cost of child care, how to bring down the cost of health care, and so on and so forth. Social Security and Medicare was a big theme in this past election cycle. It just sucks for it to be a change election and to be the party in power.
But I do think it's, first of all, when he talked about the economy last year, a lot of it was thank you, President Biden, for all the things that you did, and a laundry list
Which he did today, by the way, at the end of his speech.
Yes, he did. But my point is that what he did today is exactly what everybody's been saying he should have been, and all the Democrats should have been doing very forcefully, so that it wasn't just sucks for us, it's a bad year, but to take this issue on head on.
I think that we have to look at the Republicans' mandate now on this. The cost of, a gallon of milk, 20% of that goes into the processing, the logistics, the admin behind getting that gallon of milk. Republicans' answer to that is give everybody raw milk, just completely deregulate the thing. And for those of us who would like pasteurized milk, I know controversial takes on that. We want to be able to buy that gallon of milk without the exorbitant cost, that pasteurized gallon of milk, and finding that happy medium. And Republicans need to get to work, figure out how to reduce those costs for everyday Americans.
I think here's what I've missed from the 2024 campaign is and I was on this set talking about affordability, and Democrats saying everything's great. Inflation's down, unemployment's down. And I'm saying, no, affordability is the issue. Oh, wages are up. Like, there was a huge disconnect with the Democratic Party and what actually ailed America at that time. And that was America just became unaffordable, whether it was milk, whether it was rent, whether it was insurance, and it became an affordability issue. And the Democrats, because they had to prop up Biden and his horrible economy and the policies that led to a horrible economy, sort of put their head in the sand and didn't talk about the prevailing issue was America during Biden became unaffordable. Hakeem Jeffries is finally there. I think, 12 days or 10 days before President Trump gets elected, little too late, but it's always going to be their policies that are going to continue to make America unaffordable, because they didn't do anything to say everything was wrong this last time. They said everything was great. And it wasn't great.
It's really tough to fight against inflation because if inflation goes up, obviously, if it goes down, prices don't go down, they still go up. They just go up a little slower. And people have this memory of 5 years ago, eggs were this, now they're this. So it was tough to battle against. Democrats can talk about affordability and democracy. And people are kind of poo-pooing the democracy thing. And I get it, that shouldn't be the number one issue. But that did gin up the Democratic base that still turned up and could have voted less without a message that ginned them up. You know, people talk all the time, you know, Donald Trump is talking about the border because that gins up his base. Democracy is an important issue to Democrats. And I think this year, even though they lost, look, a bird sneezing differently a week before the election, and that 1-point victory by Donald Trump would have been a 1-point victory by Kamala Harris. It was a win by Donald Trump, but it wasn't the blowout that people are trying to.
Well, and just to your point about prices, I mean, let's remember Donald Trump very recently acknowledged that prices are not going to go down.
Correct.
He said that. He was like, well, I campaigned on things getting less expensive. They're probably not going to get less expensive.
I also distinctly remember Kamala Harris, who, to be sure, could have done an even better job of doing this, calling out the fact that prices with respect to groceries and gas are about 20% higher than they were several years ago, and identifying corporate greed as the main culprit when it comes to that. Because again, the rate of inflation is actually close to where it was before the pandemic. But you've seen concentration of industries, and you've seen companies just like jacking up prices, and there being no accountability. So one of the best things that she talked about was taking on corporate greed, which is always a popular idea with the American people. But I think she could have leaned more into an economic populism. I do agree with that criticism of the campaign.
I'm going to play this what Hakeem Jeffries had to say also about the border, which is another big issue that Donald Trump ran on and won on.
We will work with anyone to secure our borders, and we will work with anyone to fix our broken immigration system in a comprehensive and bipartisan manner.
You know,
Hakeem is about to be a Republican at this point.
I mean, look, again, some of this is just, it's good politics at the start of a Congress. It really now is actually, the ball is in Republicans' court. Will they actually work with Democrats on some of this stuff? Because on immigration, they have to.
They will
really
have
to get to some kind of
absolutely.
real result.
They will have to. First of all, they have such a small margin that there's going to have to be a bipartisan effort. So in that respect, Jeffries was correct, you know, when he came out and said, we're going to have to work together.
Yeah, but comprehensive is amnesty, and the voters do not want
Is
amnesty.
it? Or is it?
100% it's amnesty.
So is that this is very interesting. I mean, do you think that the comprehensive is now a dirty word for
Yes,
Republicans?
100%.
Well, I'll
100%.
say it's
and it should be a dirty word. Why are we going to reward bad actors?
No, the easy way to hit it is to call it amnesty, and that's what happens. The reality is, because then you have to get into the details, one of the things that was pushed a few years ago is like, look, you're not going to deport 20 million people. Okay, Donald Trump thinks he's going to. You're not going to. So what do you do with that? You have this, let's look at people as capital. This capital that's underutilized right here, that it would be nice if they could enter the work system and pay taxes, so you can put them at the back of the line for legal status and citizenship way down the road. That's not amnesty, is saying everybody here is now a U.S. citizen, we're good to go. But the problem is, and I'm agreeing with Brian here, the nuances are hard to explain, and it seems like amnesty, and they're going to have to do a better job of explaining
it sounds to me what Brian is saying, Brian, I mean, you tell me, Republicans are not interested in actually fixing the immigration system.
No, they're 100% interested in fixing the immigration system, but in a conservative way. They want to secure the border. They want to make sure that, you know, the people that are coming here, whatever the H-1B visa discussion is that we're having people that are contributing to our economy. It's no longer sort of the Bush policy or the Reagan policy of family unification. It's now the policy of meritocracy. What are you bringing into the country?
But what about the 11 million plus people who are here? Like, you have to address that. Are you for just mass deporting all 11 plus million of those people, or a pathway to legal status, which you would describe as amnesty?
H-1Bs and people crossing the border. There's like a lot of other aspects of it that are also broken.
I mean, what about our dreamers? God bless our dreamers who are brought here through no fault of their own. These are children who only know America, but because their parents brought them here, I mean, it's not, we shouldn't punish those kids.
Republicans from rural
It's softies, Swifties.
districts who have farmers and agriculture and factories are going to be very, very, very upset if they find out that their workforces are going to be deported. They depend hugely, in a huge way on that workforce for them.
So, I mean, that's a really fascinating thing.
I would add, Trump ran on deporting, 10 million, 20 million, whatever the number he threw out. He said 20 million at high end. I don't think it's 20 million. But he ran on it, and the voters affirmed that's what they want. Now, now the process is going to be staged.
And that's the truth. That is the truth right there. This man said he's going to deport millions of people while he was campaigning. During the campaign trail, the roundtable conversation, the event he had during the election process, he said, I am going to do mass deportation. We are going to carry out the largest deportation in American history. And guess what the people said? Woo! Let's go. That's what the people said. Yeah. They said, deport them. Because I do not understand why you would be in the United States for 20, 25 years, 30 years, 20, 25 years. And guess what? You're going to say, well, I don't have my documentation. Bro, sister, what have you been doing for 20, 25 years? The USCIS wants you to become a United States citizen. Homeland Security, truly, they want you to come in legally and then work your way to becoming a United States citizen. I told you, there's so many ways to become a United States citizen. If you do what you're supposed to do, go through the proper channels, USCIS actually are willing to, tell you the steps to become a United States citizen. But people are just so, I don't know. Why would you be here for 20 years, 25 years, and then you complain about, well, Trump is the bad guy? No, you go follow the law. Follow the law and be a documented person. What is going on? You always like to point fingers at, but not here. You don't want to point the finger at yourself. You want to point the finger here instead of pointing the fingers at yourself. This is what people like to do. They never want to blame themselves.
The first year is probably going to equal the first 1.5 million people that have already been targeted. That's going to happen. Then the second phase is going to come in. You're going to assess what were successful in the first phase, what changes can you make, and then you're going to have the other targets. But you're also going to have some people that are going to, I hate to use the word, but self-deport. People are going to say, wait a second, if I want to become a citizen, which is the goal of why I'm here, Trump is laying out this process of how to me to become a citizen. It requires me to go back to my home country and do this process. Maybe there is a Becerra program or a temporary worker program that exists. There's going to be avenues for it to take place.
It is what it is, y'all. Thank you for tuning in to the live show. Look, everybody has something to say bad about this guy. Or some people have good stuff to say about Trump. But it is what it is. Trump was elected by over 76 million people. And everything he was elected on were things he's still standing on. And he's been standing on for years. Tariffs. He's been talking about tariffs for years. China. He's been talking about China for years. NATO. He's been talking about NATO for years. So when people say, well, you know what? I don't know why people would vote for Trump. This is what he's been talking about for years. And he's been talking about crazy spending, the government spending like drunken sailors for years. He even said it in The Art of the Deal, how the government spends like drunken sailor, and how he built the rink in New York. And it's like, I built the rink in New York with less than the budget that the state were given to build it. And this is why I respect Trump. He doesn't like wasteful spending. He has been known all through his career to be someone who delivers under budget. Okay? He delivers under budget. Trump Tower was delivered under budget. The rink he built in New York was delivered under budget. Okay? The state couldn't build the rink. It took years until Trump said, you know what? All right, I volunteer. I want to build the rink in New York. Now everybody is enjoying the rink that Trump built. This is why I respect Trump. His track record is there. Okay, he has a track record to follow. You can look at his track record and say, you know what? He's delivered. Has he failed? Absolutely. Every successful people must fail. To be successful, you have to go through a stage of failing. You fail towards success. What you think you're just gonna what? Just like Kamala says. Kamala says you think you fell from a coconut tree. You know what? To win in life, you have to fail, and that's what Trump did. He failed so many times, and guess what? He is an American dream. Guess what? Obama said Trump is the definition of the American dream. Go search it out. Obama said this years ago before he even knew he was going to be senator. He said Trump is the definition of the American dream. Feel me? So this is why I rock with Trump. I've been rocking with Trump for like forever because this man, he's been the same person for years. He spoke about China for years. Spoke about the United States being the power of the world if only we can harness the power within. So, look, guys, everybody has their own opinions and convictions or whatever. But the fact is, if you do your due diligence on Trump, and then somebody was asking if I have read The Art of the Deal, absolutely. Okay, absolutely. The things that I learned reading The Art of the Deal, apart from like learning about business and the way Trump conducts business through stocks, shares, and just having some sort of leverage when you're making deals and buying on a low. It's like you got to understand the meaning of momentum, and that's what Trump always talks about. Keep your momentum. When you get momentum, first of all, you have to build momentum, okay? Then you keep it. You never want to lose momentum. And this is why I respect Trump. Ever since he's been building his momentum, he keeps it and he keeps on going with that momentum. He never stops. Never stops. And that's why he says every time, do not quit. Never quit. Never give up. Okay? Keep going regardless of what's going on in your life right now. Keep on moving forward. Never stop moving forward. All right? Never stop moving forward. Never quit. Things may be hard for you today, just like things were hard for Trump in the 90s. That's why Trump says survive until 95. Survive until 95. And guess what? He is the president-elect right now. So you can go through bad times, tough times. However, it's like if you don't give up, if you keep going, if you keep fighting, keep pushing, you never quit, you keep upgrading your skills, you enjoy what you do. And that's another thing Trump talks about in the book. Enjoy what you do. Okay? Enjoy what you do, and you would never have to work another day in your life. I know it's like cliche everybody talks about, you know what, enjoy what you do so you never have to work a day in your life. But it's actually facts. Okay? It's actually true. If you enjoy what you do, you would really, truly enjoy the hard work. You would enjoy the bad days because you know that this is my life. This is what I enjoy doing. Win or lose, you will keep doing it. Okay, and this is why Trump is very successful. A lot of people are going to say, well, he's not successful. His casino tanked. Trump University tanked. Well, you can say all of those tanked. But what about all the properties he has around the world? This man has been a billionaire since like the 80s, late 70s, 80s. Like, if you go read the book, The Art of the Deal, Trump talks about how his father would, go pick nails from buildings he was building. He would pick, like, the stuff that were left. He never wanted anything to go to waste. Like, his father wanted to send pesticide to his uncle, because Trump's uncle was like a scientist. He wanted to send the pesticide to his uncle to make pesticide because he wants to save money. This is Trump's background. He is not a wasteful spender. This is why he brought Elon Musk and Vivek into the administration, Department of Government Efficiency, to make sure that they stop the crazy spending going on in the government, because this is Trump. He doesn't like wasteful spending. He doesn't like you owing money. That's why he's saying, you know what, we're going to pull out of NATO because people are not paying their fair share. And people are saying, well, Trump doesn't want to be with his ally. No, if the allies are not paying their fair share, what do you expect? You know what I like about people? People say, well, Genesis, I hope you're not believing what you're saying. So tell us in the chat, what do you have to add? You just want to oppose, but you have nothing to add? Can you be a constructive criticizer? Like, you want to criticize me? I get it. Okay, I get it. You can never be doing stuff and then not get criticized by people who don't have profile pictures on YouTube. But it's fine. You know, like, I have the confidence to put my face here and talk. And English is not even my first language. Just think about that. English is not my first language. I wasn't born in the United States. I came to the United States about 9 years ago. I became a United States citizen. I came through the legal channel. I went through Homeland Security. I went through USCIS. I got to the United States. I worked my butt off, still working my butt off today. And I am trying to contribute into the society any little way that I can. And people without profile picture on YouTube come up here and talk BS with no constructive thing to say. But I get it. People must talk. But it is what it is. Okay. Anyway, instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. And believe in God. It is your boy Genesis. You know what? If anything you take away from this, stay strong. Stay strong. Stay strong. And never, ever give up. Yes, Nigerians speak English. Does that mean that's the first language? The United States only speak English. This is the language in the United States. Nigeria has over 500 languages. Yeah, that's the thing about people. They just like to, I'm gonna get him right now. Nigerians speak English. Yes, Nigerians speak English because we were taught English in school. That's not the normal language we speak when we get home to our parents. We have over 500 languages, dog. Like, when you get home here in the United States, if you are an American, born in America, your parents were born in America, when you get home, you speak English. When you get to school, you speak English, except you like take Spanish classes or French classes. Back in Nigeria, we get taught English in school, but when we get back home, we speak our language. I'm just saying this to let you know that if I am confident enough to come out here, do some reading, do some due diligence, and you are willing to listen and you're like, this motherfucker right here makes sense. So it's like, think about it. Somebody says Elon Musk speaks 600 languages. That's cap. That's straight up cap. No, I'm not Asian. I was born in Nigeria and I moved to the United States. Anthony says, you're a great new American. You speak truth, but more importantly, it's Trump style logic. Yeah. Trump can barely speak English. That's why I team Elon all the way. What do you mean, Trump? Trump is probably one of the most eloquent, skillful communicator I've heard speak English. Come on, man. Don't play with Trump. Yeah, man. Put your steez in the chat, man. Put your steez in the chat, cause y'all want. Yeah, put your steez in the chat, y'all. This guy right here, or this girl right here, I don't know. Like many bilingual speakers. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, we work hard to be able to speak this way. Like, if you meet most Nigerians that have been here for just 7 years, this year is going to be my 8 years in the United States, my 8th year in the United States. They have very thick accent, like absolutely thick accent. Of course, I have an accent. You can hear it if you listen carefully. Of course, you can hear my accent. However, it's like my accent isn't that bad because I read. Okay, I read, and I speak a lot. So doing these shows, actually, I'm gonna just tell y'all one secret. The reason I started YouTube and started talking was because I wanted to improve my spoken English. Because, like I said, English is not my first language. But I've spoken with people like most American who are like, business owners. They're so rooted and they're so business minded and they know things about taxes, insurance, credit, life insurance, and all that stuff. Okay. When I talk to them, they're like, yo, Genesis, how did you learn to speak this way? And I'm like, because I read a lot. I listen to a lot of audiobooks and put myself out there to be able to make a lot of mistakes. Okay. People hide from making mistakes. People don't want to make mistakes. People want to be, I want to be perfect. F being perfect. You could never be perfect. I mean, you could try, but you can never be perfect. You can never be perfect. You can never, ever be perfect. You just have to learn. Put your head down. Learn. Don't think you know everything. Okay? That's why I like to read. All right? I just like to put myself in the shoes of different people, learn from them, and don't be afraid to take risks. Okay? Put yourself out there. You can fail. People can laugh at you. People have laughed at me doing live streams like, what are you saying, bro? You don't even you're not even articulate, bro. What? Come on, man, bro. You're not even American. Yes, I am American. Okay. I'm a naturalized American and I got my United States passport. I got my United States citizenship over 2 years ago now. So it's like, relax. Okay. Relax. Billions is pretty amazing. Trump can barely speak English, according to you, but the whole world understands it. Man loves it. And yeah, that's the thing. Like, people want to talk about how Trump is this or that, but the whole world are like so happy right now that he is the president of the United States. Like some Americans, like 74 million people who voted for Kamala, don't want Trump to be the president of the United States for sure. However, it's like the world actually, they have this great relief that Trump is the president of the United States. What do we have here? Most expensive state. What do we have? Trump does not. Okay. So when you say people, I can hear the Nigerian accent. You can hear the Nigerian accent. Absolutely. I have many Nigerian friends and they have a Nigerian accent, but they can speak English very well. I can go to Nigeria and speak English and everyone will understand me. I don't think so, my dog. I don't think so. I am a Nigerian, okay? Except you speak, because everybody speaks differently, okay? Like, when I got here and I pronounce things, people are like, what did you say? Can you say that again? Because I schooled here in New York and it's like, I'm talking and these people are like, can you say that again? Can you say that again? Because we pronounce things or words differently, okay? I'm not talking about people who schooled in UK or schooled in, maybe had the opportunity to school in Australia or somewhere in Europe or somewhere in the United States because their parent had the opportunity for them to travel. I'm not talking about those Nigerians. I'm talking about people who've never been outside Nigeria, who are like full grown Nigerian. When you hear them speak, you can hear the craziest accent. Of course, we speak English, like I said, because we're taught English in school. However, it's like broken English. It's not. I mean, we're smart people. There's no conversation around that. Like, it's known Nigerians are very smart people. However, it's like the English we're being taught in school is not the same. The pronunciation is different. That's the word. The pronunciation is different. Okay. Just like you guys talk faster here, we talk slower back home. And well, I've always been a fast talker anyway. And yeah, that's why. But with that being said, do you guys have any questions for me before I leave? Because we might be leaving right now. I love you. I love you, my chocolate brother, especially since you love Trump. My boy. Somebody says Igbos are smart. Igbos are smart. In Nigeria, Igbos are like known for business. Igbo brothers, you probably have a lot of Nigerian friends, or maybe are related to a Nigerian. I don't know. But Igbos are very smart people when it comes to business. I mean, it's like a myth. Okay, it's like a myth. People say, well, a lot of Igbo people are smart people when it comes to businesses. It's the same thing with Yoruba, because I am, like, back home, I would be considered a Yoruba guy. Okay, because my mom is a Yoruba woman, my dad is a Yoruba man. May he so rest in peace. Yeah, I am a Yoruba guy, but Yoruba people are known to be very, man, how would I put it now? It's like we do businesses, but we're like, we just like to learn a lot and have a good time in life. Okay. And people always say Yoruba demons. Like, we are, I mean, this is just a myth as well. They say Yoruba man likes women. Okay. This is just myth. Okay. They say don't date a Yoruba guy because if you date a Yoruba person, you get your heart broken. This is just myth as well. Nigerians are my brothers from another mother. When I was 18, a man named Henry spoke with a heavy Nigerian accent. Absolutely. Give me a job and I was able to support my family. Shout out to Lil Vegas. Yeah, man, Nigerians are awesome people for sure. And yeah, man. Yeah. I'm glad you guys are here having a good time. This community is like, even this guy or this person, um, you know, always trying to come in here and get me. I gotcha moment. But I still cherish everybody who tunes in to listen, to be a part of the show. People who have been members, people who are being members of the channel, God bless you. People who super chat, God bless you. People who super donate, whatever you do, God bless you. You guys are the best. And yeah, man, it means a lot that we can start something and watch it grow. It is tremendous. Sucks to be Panama. Panama has beautiful women. Okay. As a matter of fact, you see Cuba, Colombia, Latino, like Hispanic women. Yeah, the Panama Canal was first attempted to be built by the French. Okay. French people tried to build it, but they couldn't build it because a lot of their men were dying of yellow fever, malaria, and a lot of, other diseases. And they didn't have enough investment as well as manpower because, like I said, people were dying. So French, of course, abandoned the project and the United States took it over and completed the Panama Canal. And I think they commissioned the Panama Canal in 1914. So French people tried to do it in the 1800s. The United States took it over in the 1900s and completed it. And of course, Jimmy Carter sold it to, kind of like gave it out to Panama for $1. And this is where we are right now. And over 30,000 Americans, lost their lives building the Panama Canal. And, it is just crazy. It is just crazy. Absolutely crazy. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Rob. Thank you for the super chat. God bless you. That was amazing. God bless you, Rob. Really, really appreciate it. Rob, God bless you. Somebody says, yeah, Genesis 100%. Billion, I think you have a loose relationship with reality. What is your first language? My first language would be considered Yoruba language. Okay. Yoruba language. Genesis speaking facts, speaking fire. Yes, sir. Donald Trump and the Great Panama Canal tantrums. Like, that's the thing. Like, this, I don't understand Americans saying that Trump is having tantrums. This person is looking out for Americans. It's like, why is that bad? If you are Americans, aren't you supposed to be America first? You finally have a president who is saying America first, and you don't like it? I don't get it, man. I just do not get it. Billions, he literally just said that even though you're running your mouth, he still loves you. You're slow. Stop embarrassing yourself. Absolutely. I love you. Look, I love you, dog. I love you because you're here. You are interacting. You're being active. Okay. You're still, getting the conversation going. So regardless of whatever you think or you criticize me, it is what it is. You're here, you enjoy the community, you want to be a part of the chat, and just enjoy it. Okay. I can take it. I'm a big boy. Criticize me. Say whatever you want to say about me. I'm a big boy. Okay. I got a 5-year-old daughter. I can handle it. Say what you want to say. Okay. I got thick skin. I love you. The more you speak, the more I love you, chocolate brother. Local things. Yo, local thing says, the more you speak, the more I love you, my chocolate brother. Now, you're straight, right? You straight. Yeah, you better be straight. I love you too, my dog. Somebody says, starfish. Yeah, y'all wildin', man. Y'all wildin' right now. You guys are wildin' right now. Okay. Sev G says, "Hey, how are you doing, Sev G? Welcome to the live stream. You know what time it is. Anyway, my name is Genesis, and welcome to the live show. Double tap your screen to like the show. Double tap your screen twice. Double tap your screen twice to give the show a like, and subscribe to the channel. And oh shoot, she is probably Spanish. Sev G is Spanish. Is that like good stuff you're typing or bad stuff? I don't know. Johnny Cash says, no, it's not about America First. Lot. Check what happened last time America went crazy after Great Depression. Check about I was playing for deepening the Great Depression. Yeah, Johnny Cash, you need to do more reading. But even about the tariffs, people talking about tariff is bad. No, actually, tariff is not bad. If you go back in time, the United States actually made more money, survived on tariffs. That's why it's good to do a little, digging and reading. You just learning about history. The United States history, tariff was the way they made a lot of money. Okay. Tariffs were ways to make a lot of money back in them days. But now it's like tariff is bad because, the media tells you tariff is bad. But actually, tariff isn't that bad. Okay. Of course, it's like a negotiation skill, or tool rather. It's a negotiation tool. However, it's still ways for the country to make money. All right. So we have all the materials, build everything we need, and we don't need anybody else. No, that's not what you look. America first doesn't mean you don't need anybody else. Come on. What are you saying? America first just mean look out for Americans first. That's what it means. It doesn't mean you have everything you need to survive by yourself. And it also means people in NATO, the countries in NATO, pay up. So if you owe money and you're not paying your fair share, so the United States is just supposed to subsidize you. Come on, you're gonna have to pay your fair share. Carry your cross and pay your fair share. And that's what is going on with what's their name? What's this country in, let me see, Denmark, Greenland. Okay, this is what is going on with Greenland right now. Denmark isn't paying their fair share in NATO. So Trump is like, well, we're going to figure out how to get this money from you. So that's why he's talking about Greenland. Okay, shout out to Joshua. Joshua says you enunciate very well, my brother. I agree with everything you say, and you speak very well. Thanks for teaching me about immigration. Shout out to Angie with cats. Shout out to Angie with cats. Shout out to Joshua. God bless you, my brother. Nah, she's not. Sev G is not Nigerian. That's definitely not Nigerian language. That's like French. Sev G, where are you from? She's probably from Colombia, Cuba, or like Brazil. But those countries don't speak French anyway. But yeah, that's not Yoruba language. Please, okay. Why do all economists say that the tariffs will raise prices? Jesse, because this. So you think economists saying that tariffs will raise prices? You think it's right, bro? You know that's cap. No, you would not choke yourself, bro. Those same people said Joe Biden was going to be better than Trump. Those same people told you Kamala was going to be a better candidate than Trump. Come on, you cannot trust these people. Come on, you know that. That's why you got to do your own reading by yourself. You got to study by yourself. You don't have to listen to people saying, well, according to economists, the top economists in the cities, in the states, in America, they're saying that Trump's economy is going to be worse than Biden's economy. Lies. Yeah, that's the thing, local things. Yeah, it's usually nameless people from different cities, and they're going to say, well, the top economist in the United States says Trump's economy is going to be the worst ever in decades. Who are the economists? No names. No names. No names. So, first of all, NATO has to pay up their bills. The countries in there that are not meeting up their quota, you have to meet up your quota. You have to make sure you do your own payment. You can't let the United States pays. The United States basically, look, shout out to YouTube, but the United States basically owns NATO at this point because the United States pays a lot. Says here, the United States remains the world's largest military spender by far. In dollar terms, the U.S. represents about 2/3 of NATO countries. Annual defense spending, budgeting an estimated $967 billion. The United States contributes 16%. This was last year, May 2024. The United States contributes 16% of NATO annual budget. 16%. So it's like, if the and it says only 35% of NATO countries meets the group's defense budget. Only 35%. Come on, y'all. Say 5-4, fuck around and fight now. Yeah. Oh my God. Man, y'all. Look, I can stay up all day with y'all. We've been streaming for over 3 hours right now. You guys are the best. We gotta go. We gotta go. We're gonna be back for sure. We're gonna be back for sure. You want to keep going because the chat is going bunkers right now. The chat is going bunkers right now. Y'all, like, y'all, we could probably play. Let me see, man, because y'all be doing too much at this point. Let me see. Yes. Shout out to Crazy Horse. Shout out to Crazy Horse, man. The United Nation, for sure, and NATO, Trump is definitely going to just say, you know what? We're leaving both behind. It's almost going to be like for real. He's going to leave both behind. I mean, people, look, man, I don't know why people act this way at all. I just don't know why. Why wouldn't you want the United States first? Isn't that what you should be fighting for? America first? Huh? Shouldn't it be America first? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, one more time. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. And believe in God. Never quit, okay? Regardless of how hard life gets. Never, ever, ever quit. Keep going. Keep fighting. Keep believing in yourself. Keep believing in your dreams. Life is hard. Sometimes life isn't fair. But keep on going. Never, ever, ever quit. I love you guys. It is your boy Genesis, and I am signing out. Also, thank you to the veterans. Shout out to everybody who tuned in. God bless you for the super chat, for the memberships. God bless you. Local thing says Genesis don't go. Like I said, I don't want to go, but yeah, boy, got to go. It is 7:16 a.m. It's a Saturday, okay. Um. Oh. Well, let's hope so. Yo, daughter is smarter than she's definitely smarter than I am. My 5-year-old is definitely smarter than I am, and that's a compliment, by the way. Thank you. If you lose, you have to fight like hell, of course. I mean, who doesn't? You think I want to be a loser? You think I want my 5 years old to grow up and say my dad was a loser? He never fought for life. He never fought for his dreams. He never fought for the things he believes in. Matter of fact, my dad believes in nothing. Is that what you want your daughter or your son to say about you as a father? You don't want to fight for something that means something to you. You don't want to fight for a better life for your family. You don't want to fight like hell to give your family a better future. Isn't that what life is about? Well, I don't look at this point. I don't get it with people, man. Okay. I rest my case. Okay. I rest my case, everybody. I rest my case. All right. Because common sense is not common. I can tell you that much. Y'all doing way too much at this point. All right. I love you guys. I gotta go. Local things. I promise you I'll be back. I'll be back today, okay? Because I gotta go be a daddy in like 2 hours when my daughter gets up.